joka järven jää, on taakse jäänyttä elämää. On siellä nyt kossit ja sassit ja puomit ja basset, juu. Korsuissa kaminaa, siellä pelataan nakkia raminaa. On meillä fritsit ja maksit ja petropamaksit, juu. On täällä tallattu ja maata vallattu, on täällä koukittu ja teitä noukittu. On sota tuimaa, juno päätä huimaa. Pum pum pum, patterit paukkuu ja korohorot haukkuu, juu. Läski ja lotinaa ja peurapa pyllyä ihanaa. On rämpsässä käristetty, kiristetty, matkaha varistettu, juu. Ei hevosilla heiniä, vaan syövät ne tallista seiniä. On toisilla suolissa santaa, eikä tule lantaa, juu. On täällä napsittu, on täällä tapsittu, laukaistu miinoja ja annosviinoja. On eukkoa ikävää, kun syö sitä vitamiinipilleriä. Ottaa sen kotiloma tyssää, kun roiskitaan ryssää, juu. Kiskis kukkulaa, on siellä ne munat sekä makkaraa. Mutta se muna kun se meni, niin se makkara jäi vain, juu. Röhössä on tiltun tie, se kurasena murasena ukkoalle vie. On täällä pielujet, sirniat, sornojen oserat, juu. Varjossa honkien, lotta kanttiini, sumpiaan keittävi, siellä ottaa lunkreeni. Riukuja, prykätty, on liukuja, lykätty, juu.
So long, Mom, I'm off to drop the bomb, so don't wait up for me. But while you swelter down there in your shelter, you can watch me on your TV. While we're attacking frontally, watch Brinkley and Huntily describing contrapuntily the cities we have lost. No need for you to miss a minute of the agonizing Holocaust. Yeah! Little Johnny Jones, he was a U.S. pilot, and no shrinking violet was he. He was mighty proud when World War III was declared. He wasn't scared, no siree. And this is what he said on his way to Armageddon. So long, Mom, I'm off to drop the bomb, so don't wait up for me. But though I may roam, I'll come back to my home, although it may be a pile of debris. Remember, Mommy, I'm off to get a commie, so send me a salami and try to smile somehow. I'll look for you when the war is over, an hour and a half from now.
Я намотив гітару, і я майже законним чином намотив фуз. А це означає, що віднині тут буде грати тільки донбаський блюз. Коли копаю шахту і на заводі роблю, то кидаю всім піс. Відкритому морі я відкриваю шлюз. Донбаський блюз, донбаський блюз. Донбаський блюз, донбаський блюз, донбаський блюз. Русалкам Азові кидаю всім піс. Відкритому морі я відкриваю шлюз. Донбаський блюз, донбаський блюз. Донбаський блюз, донбаський блюз, донбаський блюз.
Камуфляжі пара берців не убита. В мене є моє натхнення і стара бейсбольна бита. В мене є з собою сотка, заничена остання. В кого є питання? В мене є питання. Хто за мене переписує закони і порядки? Мене трахають весь час, за мною ж сплачені податки. Що за стрьомні пасажири тут будують п'єдестали? Я би, може, і промовчав, але якось піддістали. Перевірили кишені, перерили рюкзак. Прогресивна молодь підпалила автозак. Бо само собою тут нічого не розрулиться. Зараз розберемося, кому належить вулиця. Якщо вміти, навіть праведників можна задовбати. Щас підключиться актив і починаються дебати. Щас підвалить на пікет електорати з тренажерки. Бо реформа судів – це фаєри і фейерверки. Передайте міністру, хтось уже приніс каністру. Активісти вже пігнули, рідину легко займисту. Добрий вечір, джентльмени, розгортається знамена. Нахуя мені система, що працює проти мене? Хуя мені
Hello, hello, hello. Hope you're all doing well. It is 6:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is 3:57 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 1:57 a.m. in the general Kiev area. As always, let's start with a Kiev air alert update. See if Kiev is under air alert. I was just on a call with a buddy, so I would not be surprised if it was still under air alert because it was when I was talking to him. Yes, Kiev City, Sumy region, and elsewise in those two areas are under air alert. It also looks like Odessa is under air alert. Odessa is often attacked from Crimea and from the sea. That's why they have a lot of like naval air defense teams out there. Let me get this map up on the screen so you can all see the situation as of right now. Did you see that Greg put out a video today that is a KH-101 missile damaged their Ukrainian aid warehouse? No, I did not see that, but that is not terribly surprising. I mean, I'm happy Greg's okay. I hope everybody who was working at the humanitarian warehouse is okay. I've talked to Greg before. He, does a really good job covering Ukraine. I know we have disagreements, but as long as we're all working towards, supporting Ukraine, all those agreements really matter not much in the moment of the action. And so I really hope he can keep doing the good work that he's doing. Same with the warehouse. But I mean, we saw those Danish demining CESU workers, those civilian emergency crew people who were just disarming mines in the Chernihiv region. We saw they got destroyed by a Russian strike recently. We saw that shop in Konstantinivka got hit, killed a bunch of elderly people, wounded many others. There's some more human safari going on in Kherson right now. I know many of the journalists on the ground in Kherson have been trying to bring attention to the fact that, since all of the firefighting equipment is getting targeted, now that they're all getting targeted, like firefighters aren't coming out to these strikes, either because their like resources are too strained, the emergency services are too strained, or elsewise. And so these houses are getting hit with incendiary bombs, and then they just burn. A woman was recently killed in one of these strikes. They had no water to put out the fire, and the firefighters couldn't get there, and so the house burned. And I mean, we've published some footage of these fire trucks getting attacked during the Kherson documentary, but I mean, it's still going on. I kept seeing it over and over and over again after we published our documentary, and so I don't know how many fire engines are left in Kherson, and I don't know how many. I mean, even if I see some getting donated, if they immediately go respond to a strike and then get hit, I mean, and, these are big, bright red fire engines. Are they gonna have to make? I mean, maybe they're gonna have to start camouflaging the fire engines, but those things are big, man. You can't really hide them well. The security camera caught the explosion on camera and the damage. Yes, everyone's okay. That's good. That's good that everybody's okay at the warehouse. That is good. Hey, who even are you? I don't know. I'm as confused as you are. I'm as confused as everyone else. But yeah, no. More attention to what's going on in Kherson. The human safari never stopped. It never stopped. In fact, the human safari expanded. We published a video on it on the second channel, on the live channel recently. But the ranges that the Russians have now on their drones, they're not only attacking Kherson and all of the civilian infrastructure and all these civilians who are walking down the street, but they're also attacking the roads into Kherson now. And there was a couple that was killed recently in a strike, taking a road just into the city.
I just heard about this streamer from Hasan who just heard of him too. I'm interested in learning about this. Dylan Burns, if I'm saying that right.
Yeah, no, some people say it that way. Others use my native tongue, my native name. But I don't feel comfortable in this environment to share it. I don't believe I'm with my people. Many of you, most of you, in fact, are not even Marylanders. Hello, Dylan Burns. Hello, Chet. Hello. Thank you for the $20, Rick Montana. I always wanted to visit Montana. There are places in the United States I want to go to. It's a short list. I want to revisit West Virginia because I miss my family up there. I want to go see them. But Montana is on that short list. Montana's on that short list of places I do want to go. It's been told is very beautiful. Okay. So where do we start with? Where do we start today? We could start straight with the Hasan thing just to clarify it and get it over with. But let's like do a few quick stories, just like a few quick segments, because I want to just make sure that people have time to get in if they're interested, and because I want to get through this stuff quick because some of it's left over from yesterday. One thing I did want to cover and I didn't cover, but I did post about today, and I wish I did cover during yesterday's stream, was the killing of 58-year-old farmer Alexander. Now, this guy right here, he's from the Kherson region, and that is where the human safari has been ongoing. That is the use of Russian drone pilots, either for training purposes or in order to fundraise or for any reason that you might speculate, to possibly get the civilians all to leave, to simplify their strategy. We can't really tell you what the intention is because the Russians aren't going to tell us what their intentions are, but they've been striking tons and tons of civilians. This includes fire trucks. This includes ambulance drivers. This includes, rescue teams, police vehicles, street sweepers, babushkas going to get their medicine. I've interviewed a lot of these people and I filmed the damage. And often I thought that I would I'm going to have a difficult time proving this. The Russians often post footage of it themselves. I mean, it was the Russian Ministry of Defense, not some tiny unit, that posted footage recently of those 2 Danish aid workers that were doing demining work in the Chernihiv region on their main accounts with the Russian Ministry of Defense logo on it after it was disclosed that they were Danish aid workers removing mines from communities near where civilians live. I mean, there hasn't been fighting in that region since 2022. People returned to their homes. They tried some level of normalcy. So this isn't something new, but this farmer had a picture taken of him. He led the Regional Farmers Association in the Kherson region. And this picture right here, see if I can open it in a new tab, I think is very powerful. I think it is an extremely powerful picture where you can see him trying to defend his farm with whatever he has, his shotgun in front of his tractor working with a drone detector in his hand, waiting for the beep so he can take out the drones that could be hunting his hands, his farm hands, that could be hunting him, and that could be trying to stop him from working. And I can tell you, I've seen farmers within kilometers of the front line myself. I've been in positions where I'm armored up and we're like under a tree branch waiting because we heard reports of drones in the area. I'm with like some grad team and I just see farmers like 2 kilometers from the front line, just farming their fields because that's what they have. That's what they own. And without it, if they don't farm it, if they leave and it gets taken over, well, then they lose their land to the occupation. It'll probably be sold off to some family in Russia. And if they stay, they are under threat of being bombed. They're under threat of being attacked. But that means they can pay their bills. Because even if they stop just farming and just stay in their homes, well, then how are they going to pay money? What's going to happen to the farm hands that need to find ends meet as well? What's going to happen to the farm? And so a lot of these people work despite the risk. Some of them get shotguns. Some of them have made like kind of retrofitted demining gear. That is, they've taken tractor trailer equipment. They've hooked it up with like metal plates on the front of it, and they push the mines away that have been dropped by drones or that have been left behind by occupying forces in areas like Balaklia, where the Ukrainians have liberated it. Point is, these types of pictures of like the perseverance, bad with the English, the perseverance of Ukrainian life and Ukrainian farmers in a country famous, of course, for its farming and its extremely rich black soil. It painted a powerful image, and the dude was recently killed in a Russian strike on his farm. It's very sad, but I wanted to make sure I covered it because not only is the image powerful, but it's a very tragic story. But it's just a microcosm of the tons and tons of farms all across the front line where farmers are continuing to work despite the risk. Despite the fact that, like, the miners will tell you, do not remove those with your, like, tractor that you have turned into a mine clearance vehicle. You don't have the expertise to do it, and they just do it anyway. They just do it anyway. Bro got muscle on his forehead. Yeah, no, that dude was ripped. That dude was ripped. Okay, 2 more, and then I think maybe we can get into like the the Hasan thing because I just want to kind of get it out of the way. It's Friday. Okay, the weekend's right there, everybody. Can't you see it? It's down the tube. It's right there. It's right there. That's where the weekend is. Right there. Okay. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but this is Senator Mullen, who is on CNN talking about RFK's hearing before the committee, where he was unable to deal with the pressure from Republican medical professionals, Republican doctors who are in the Senate, who voted for him and who were telling him to his face that he has concerned them with his rhetoric around vaccines since then. And the dude got dribbled around a bit like a basketball. It was worse than his original committee hearing, in my opinion, when it came to the type of pressure they could put now that he's been in office, and they could hold him to his promises, and they could see what it's actually like, months and months and months after he's actually had to manage our health institutions. So here is Secretary Mullen talking about the fact that, well, RFK, one of his initiatives that he announced very early on was that he was going to discover what creates autism. He was going to find its source, and then we could deal with it. We could deal with it. We could go find the source and then pounce, right? Oh my gosh. That would be such an achievement. And he set a deadline of September, this month, the month we're in right now. He only has 25 more days before he tells us the source of autism. And so he can begin his quest to cure it. It was a ridiculous statement. It was a ridiculous press conference. And the fact that it was kind of just treated as like another crazy story in the Trump era just shows how high the bar is now to actually catch a headline. So let me show you Secretary Mullen talking about the transformation in autism analysis and identification and the official numbers on how many people have autism, as the number has increased for what medical professionals say are a variety of reasons, but also largely include better, medical identification, basically being better at identifying it, and a broadening of what exactly is considered autism, as the, that's identified as autism or traits from autism. Here's him trying to talk to CNN about it. It's very interesting. He has a lot of questions, very little answers, and that's his problem, as he admits.
I want to pull apart, I take your point about chronic diseases, and it's very clear that there are a lot of Americans in the world that are concerned about things like food dyes and pesticides and all the things.
Let's talk about autism. I mean, autism is running rampant.
So I want to pull all of that chronic stuff apart from trust in vaccines, because if the kids at my kid's school don't get vaccinated for the measles, the chances that my kid is going to get measles go up, right? So that affects all of us. And it was very clear today that we saw Secretary Kennedy questioning these vaccines. That was the heart of what Barrasso was saying. It was the heart of what...
Mind you, Florida just announced that they're going to eliminate all vaccine mandates. Measles, mumps, polio, all of these ailments, all of these pests against humanity that have hurt and killed so many that we have basically annihilated. We're going to stop that mandatory inoculation, as the culture has transformed, as now half of Americans don't really agree with mandatory vaccine mandates. It used to be like 30 years ago, it was like 80, 90% of Americans, that the culture has changed post C19. And Florida is, I think, at the spearhead of that change. Whether or not that's going to be reflected in other states as well, probably not many blue states, but who knows? And we will all get to see the effects of that. I hope nobody gets hurt, but I mean, if you stop mandatory inoculation for all these kids, it is going to lead to fatalities. The question is whether or not what you have identified as this medical freedom for everybody, even those going to public school with other people's children, should be able to say, nah, no inoculation whatsoever. We're going to go full organic, full natural. We got the crystal. We got crystals here. We have our own medical theories.
What other Republicans have been focused on. Do you think Secretary Kennedy's in the right place on vaccines?
I absolutely do. By questioning vaccines without question. I'm a father of 6. All my kids are vaccinated. But it did question it. When you start looking at statistics, what was it? 1 in 10,000 kids when we first started tracking autism was diagnosed with as autistic. Today, it's 1 in 10,
But
and in
why
some
are
numbers
you
are
linking
less
that
than
to
that.
vaccines?
I'm not. I'm saying, why wouldn't we look at it? What's changed? What we need to do is look at.
We have looked at it,
No.
and there has been that has
So we
been
shouldn't look
studied,
at it again?
And there have not the study shows.
I like the idea that there's this consensus that he's assuming that, you know, that they looked at autism, they, whoever the collective scientific they is, they then determined, we can't figure it out. Okay, everybody, pack it up. No more autism research. We're done. We're done with everybody. It's just part of the land. It's a force of nature. It's a force of nature you just cannot study. It's ununderstandable. It's like love. It's more of kind of like a metaphysical kind of, you know, it's something you can only really feel. Maybe part of the reason that we have identified those increases statistically as they've narrowed the definitions and better understood autism is because they have continued to look into autism and where it originates from. That's not the only thing that they've looked into in relation to autism, but it's not like there was been a halt on all research.
There was no connection between the MMR vaccine and autism. There was a retracted study.
Well, there's different ingredients than just one or two things inside vaccinations. There's several things that go into every vaccine. And look at how many shots we were giving our kids. When my first son was born 21 years ago versus to what my 14-year-old daughter has to get now for school is greatly different. And that was just a short period of time. We're increasing the number of vaccines we're giving to the kids, and we're increasing chronic illness. We're increasing autism.
But why
wouldn't
we
just
do
question
you know
it?
that that's connected?
We don't, but why wouldn't we look into it?
Well,
He says that as if nobody's asked this question before, as if there hasn't been studies, and that the studies that have suggested it haven't either been like turned into Swiss cheese or were later retracted and reformed in some way. Either way, the vast majority of the evidence does not point towards any link. So when you say ask questions, there wasn't any like halt on asking questions about it. They just didn't find anything. You know, if you go into a cave, there's magic gems in this cave. Go into the cave. You go into the cave. There's nothing in the cave. Months later, where's the magic gems? I thought they're in the cave. We need to check we checked the cave. We didn't find anything. We can check again. But it's not like there's nothing. Like they didn't find anything. It could be any other number of things. Modern life has changed in so many different ways. To just have these be the two things that are always talked about in relation to each other, this medical treatment and autism, when there hasn't been anything of substance connecting them, what are you to say about it? Look elsewhere. If you really care about autism, look elsewhere. Don't hyper focus on the stereotype.
why would
So what's wrong, Casey? What's wrong with questioning it? Why should we question it? As a parent, I know you're a parent, I'm a parent. Why wouldn't we question it? What is wrong with Bobby questioning what the CDC is doing? Because it's not working right now.
well, he's in charge.
He should be well informed on this. And when he's asking questions that there's easily available answers to, that he can go Google, yeah, it's a little ridiculous. How many people died? Oh, we truly don't know how many people died during COVID. You don't even need to give an exact number. Give a range. The way he performed during that hearing was laughable. It was ridiculous. It was silly. So silly. And now we're just supposed to like, oh, well, you know, he's asked questions. It's good to question things. Okay. But this is the problem. Let's say I started a question. The question things in and of itself is not bad. But if you, the top health official in the country, are questioning the efficacy of a well-proven medical treatment to stop people from catching polio and making kids' bodies drop, you know, you need to be very specific. You need to sound clear and concise in a way that isn't going to scare people off, in a way that isn't going to, you know, make people confused. But the efficacy of vaccines or the COVID vaccine, which, I mean, you had Republican senators on there, like medical professionals who are Republican senators, so it was impossible for them not to hear the contradictions, asking him like, dude, you've questioned the efficacy of these vaccines. You said to do more harm than good, but then you call this Operation Warp Speed so fantastic. Like, what's going on here? This is just a problem of a lack of knowledge. So it's not asking questions. He just has a lack of knowledge.
I want to pull up.
We need to look into it. RFK Jr. would be proud. He would be very proud. This actually scared me quite significantly. I already didn't like Zuckerberg at the inauguration. I mean, the selection of people who were behind Trump during the inauguration, you know, made me feel a little unsettled. Gave me the ick. It gave me the ick. I didn't like seeing all of that tech pro and like social influence power all around him in that, knowing how Donald Trump behaves, how he uses his relationships to benefit himself, and how he tries to push the boundaries of institutions in order to benefit his projects, either financial or political. We've seen him do this with the courts. We've seen him do this with immigration. We've seen him do this with the election system. We've seen him do this time and time again. And I didn't expect his treatment of private companies to really be any different. And him just meeting and having met with Mark Zuckerberg in and of itself doesn't really say all that much. But this right here, where Mark Zuckerberg is announcing $600 billion of investment in the United States, and you see him pause, you see him stop, you see him stammer as he's trying to figure out what he says. And then after, on the hot mic, he says, "I didn't know how much you wanted me to say. Sorry I took so long." And you see Trump's big shit-eating grin. Check this out.
How much are you spending, would you say, over the next few years?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think it's probably going to be something like, I don't know, at least $600 billion through 28 in the U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's significant.
That's a lot. Thank you, Mark. It's great to have you.
Paying attention, but sorry, I wasn't ready to do a for announcement. He said I wasn't sure what number you wanted to go with.
I wasn't sure what number you wanted to go with. Trump just gives him the number. I mean, of course, this is a tiny snippet of conversation. We can only make so many conclusions. But Trump's the one leading him around here. Trump's the one walking him out, this influential businessman with a gigantic social influence platform. And Trump is somebody who understands media. He understands the power of social networking. There's a reason why he started Truth Social in the first place. And he has him struggling in public, trying to name a big enough number to keep him happy. And then afterwards, coming back to him like, oh, is $600 billion enough? In 3 years, is $600 billion investment enough, Mr. President? I mean, this doesn't sound like a formal agreement. If it was, this is the thing that scares me about it. It would be one thing if Trump just bullied him to actually make a $600 billion investment. And he was saying, I didn't know if you wanted the $500 billion deal or $600 billion. So I went with $600 billion. That'd be one thing. You could talk, I mean, you could talk about the ethics of it, but he's the president of the United States. He's trying to get investment in the United States. You can at least understand where that's coming from. But when he says, I don't know what number you wanted to go with, that makes me imply like they're just throwing numbers out there. And considering Trump's track record of throwing out numbers in reference to aid amounts to Ukraine that was, you know, irrevocably wasted on the back of the taxpayer, or all these other times where he's just thrown out bizarre and ridiculous numbers, is this an instance of Trump who himself might have lost a certain amount of credibility when it comes to publishing numbers, especially when he's attacking people at the Bureau of Labor Statistics for publishing what turned out to be accurate labor data? Maybe he's just trying to get Mark Zuckerberg to use his credibility to put out numbers on, investment while also not actually doing that investment. I don't know. We would have to see some formal announcement from Mark of $600 billion, and we have to actually see that money process go through, start seeing things get dug up, the dirt, buildings start getting paved. Until then, I mean, this just sounds like Trump with his credibility shot as he's starting to have a kind of, North Korean relationship with North Korean style, or just the style of any really charlatan in government trying to use an authoritarian method to control statistics. Is just going to disincentivize investment because people aren't going to see enough transparency to know if it's a good or a bad investment in the United States, and it can help cover up his messes. And so if anybody's firing the heads of statistic agencies for their accurate retelling of statistics, which helps the United States. It's a good thing to preserve this. Then, I mean, this is not beneath him. I mean, right now it's full speculation. We can't know for sure what they're referencing here. But when he says something like, I wasn't ready for that, I wasn't sure what number you wanted to go with. If it was a formal agreement, if it was something that Mark Zuckerberg and Donald Trump had agreed on in advance, then they would have a number down. There would be a contract of something that would say, hey, this contract says that we're going to invest $600 billion in so-and-so. There wouldn't be a problem. The contract would be signed. You would know the number. Throw it out there. Is this possible that it's a pressure tactic to see Mark Zuckerberg like just randomly throwing out a number, or if he would say, oh, we don't have a number yet, but it's going to be a big number, a fantastic number. Maybe he thought that the pressure environment would get us a big number. Maybe that's like a tactic from Trump, but we're giving him a lot of rope here. We're giving him a lot of benefit of the doubt. A lot of the benefit of the doubt. Either way, the two scenarios in my head that seem the most likely is either A, Mark Zuckerberg was just put on his place to say a random number on the spot to make Trump look good. Or B, Trump is using the moment to put pressure on Zuck, so he threw out a number, not having formally agreed anything, because he didn't want to anger the president in a public setting like this and have a Zelensky-style back and forth. Is that how we're going to reference it in the future? Zelensky-style for when one of these meetings go haywire? Anyway, very ridiculous. But if they're that tied at the hip, I mean, the algorithm is something you don't take a lot of. Transparency in the algorithm is very important because the algorithm is what controls what you see and what you know about. And things are only done about things that we know about. And so, being able to suppress certain stories and that type of power in the hands of the U.S. president directly with social media companies, that's a real concern. It's what Republicans were concerned about in reference to the Hunter Biden laptop story, where they thought the Biden administration was basically repressing a story that was politically relevant. I don't think that's something that's, even though, the specifics about leaked content and Twitter TOS is a little different. At the end of the day, that was something that was almost universally condemned on the right. I don't see that as something beneath Donald Trump. Not at all. I mean, this is the same. I mean, if you're willing to buy out an ad in the New York Post, or was it the New York Times, either way, in order to hang the NYC 5 who were accused, but then acquitted, then it's not like he's not willing to use media, and I would say like less than ethical ways. I didn't agree with that. Buying out an ad to call for a hanging. Personally, not my taste. You see Trump talking about Lukashenko, Belarus's president?
A few weeks ago, very little written about it, but there should have been. But it was a very nice gesture. The head of Belarus, who's a very respected man, strong person, strong leader. He released 16 hostages. John Cole, a lawyer who works for me, great lawyer, actually.
You see how different Trump talks about? See, 16 hostages. He acknowledges that the people that Belarus were detaining were hostages. They weren't, they committed some horrible crime and we just wanted them back, XYZ. He's calling them hostages. And then the hostage taker he is referring to, that he had to go negotiate with to get them out, he's referring to them as the strong, powerful guy. Hey, it's all diplomacy, baby. It's all diplomacy. Very respected. I could not think of anybody else in Europe who was less respected than Lukashenko. Maybe elsewhere, but that doesn't really matter much to Trump. He's respected to him, I guess. He's strong. Strong is a really good endorsement from Donald Trump. Strong. 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 Speaking of ridiculous, how a top secret SEAL Team 6 mission into North Korea fell apart. The 2019 operation, greenlight by President Trump, sought a strategic end. It left unarmed North Koreans dead. Whoa. What is this? A group of Navy SEALs emerged from the ink-black ocean on a winter night in early 2019 and crept to the rocky shore of North Korea. They were on a top-secret mission so complex and consequential that everything had to go exactly right. The objective was to plan an electronic device that would let the United States intercept the communications of North Korea's reclusive leader, Kim Jong-un, amid high-level nuclear talks with President Trump. The mission had the potential to provide the United States with a stream of valuable intelligence, but it meant putting American commandos on North Korean soil. A move that, if detected, not only could sink negotiations, but also lead to a hostage crisis or an escalating conflict with a nuclear-armed foe. It was so risky that it required the president's direct approval. For the operation, the military chose SEAL Team 6 Red Squadron, the same unit that killed Osama bin Laden. The SEALs rehearsed for months, aware that every move needed to be perfect. But when they reached what they thought was a deserted shore that night, wearing black wetsuits and night vision goggles, the mission swiftly unraveled. A North Korean boat appeared out of the dark. Flashlights from the boat swept over the water. Fearing they had been spotted, the SEALs opened fire. Within seconds, everyone on the North Korean boat was dead. The SEALs retreated into the sea without planting the listening device. The 2019 operation has never publicly been acknowledged or even hinted at by the United States or North Korea. The details remain classified and are being reported here for the first time. The Trump administration did not notify key members of Congress who oversee intelligence operations before or after the mission. The lack of notification may have violated the law. The White House declined to comment. This account is based on interviews with 24 people, including civilian government officials, members of the first Trump administration, and current and former military personnel with knowledge of the mission. All of them spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the mission's classified status. Several of those people said they were discussing details about the mission because they were concerned that special operations failures are often hidden by government secrecy. If the public and policymakers become aware only of high-profile successes, such as the raid that killed bin Laden in Pakistan, that may underestimate the extreme risks that American forces undertake. The military operation on North Korean soil, close to American military bases in South Korea and the Pacific region, also risked setting off a broader conflict with a hostile, nuclear-armed, and highly militarized adversary. The New York Times proceeds cautiously when reporting on classified military operations. The Times has withheld some sensitive information on the North Korean mission that could affect future special operations and intelligence-gathering missions. It is unclear how much North Korea was able to discover about the mission, but the SEAL operation is one chapter in a decades-long effort by the U.S. administration to engage North Korea and constrain its nuclear weapons program. Almost nothing the United States has tried, neither pressure or closer relations nor pressures from sanctions, has worked. In 2019, Mr. Trump was making a personalized overture to Mr. Kim in search of a breakthrough that had eluded prior presidents, but those talks collapsed and North Korea's nuclear program accelerated. The U.S. estimates that North Korea now has roughly 50 nuclear weapons and missiles that can reach the West Coast. Mr. Kim has pledged to keep expanding his nuclear program exponentially to deter what he calls U.S. provocations. My goodness. I don't think we're going to read the whole article here. This is absolutely fascinating, though. Oh, my goodness. The peacemaker, Trump. My goodness. So what it sounds like to me is that Trump, during his negotiations with the North Koreans, had an interest in seeing them, of course, like give him this big diplomatic victory that he can hang his hat on, finally maybe get that elusive Nobel Peace Prize. But in order to know that if he could be serious about, actually, hey, we'll remove these sanctions for X amount of nukes removed, or all the nukes removed, which seemed to be the offer Trump was going for, which was a McDonald's on every street corner in North Korea in exchange for them giving up their entire nuclear arsenal, which was never going to work just because of the way it was spaced out. You would want to be like, hey, let's start with 5 nukes, and then let's go to 10 nukes, and, then we remove the sanctions a little bit, then remove the sanctions a little bit more. We talk about security in the future of the Indo-Pacific, or that's how you would go about it if you wanted to diplomatically engage with the North Koreans, but he wanted to go all for all. And if you're going to go all for all, I guess he'd be interested in knowing their intent. I mean, you'd be interested no matter what in knowing their intent, but especially if you're going to go all for all. So it makes sense that Trump would want to know what Kim Jong-un was saying to his other officials, what he really thought in negotiations, or if Trump was getting his chain yanked. So it would end up being made a fool by the North Korean hermit king.
Morally corrupt,
bankrupt man. Hey, thank you, Bop, Squanchy Bop, for the tier 1 sub. Beats up for 6 months. Thank you. Oh, you subbed a month in advance. I appreciate your work, Dylan. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Anyway, it's an extremely risky mission. I mean, how do you even, so they go on the coastline and they get to somewhere where they could either acquire the North Korean leader's phone and plant a device on it, or they would go to a communication tower that he relies on, or what? I mean, obviously we don't know all of the plans. And I think the New York Times probably, kept back some information on that. But my goodness, I mean, this is unbelievably high risk. I mean, we're lucky no U.S. SEALs got killed. That they had a scuffle with some, who knows, unarmed or not unarmed, people on a boat, and then they left. That's really it. You have anything else interesting here? The SEALs believe they could pull off the mission because after this, I think we'll probably, I think we have one more Joe Rogan thing, and then we can go to the Hasan thing. We're really delaying it. I'm not super excited to talk about it, but we have to, I guess. It keeps getting bigger. But the SEALs believed they could pull off the mission because they had done something like it before. In 2005, SEALs used a mini-sub to go ashore in North Korea and leave unnoticed, according to people familiar with the mission. The 2005 operation, carried out during the presidency of George W. Bush, has never before been reported publicly. The SEALs were proposing to do it again. In the fall of 2018, while high-level talks with North Korea was underway, Joint Special Operations Command, which oversees Team 6, received approval for Mr. Trump to start preparing, military officials said. It was unclear whether Trump's intent was to gain an immediate advantage during negotiations or if the focus was broader. Joint Special Operations Command declined to comment. The plan called for the Navy to sneak a nuclear-powered submarine nearly 2 football fields long into the waters off North Korea and then deploy a small team of SEALs and 2 mini-subs, each about the size of a killer whale, that would motor silently to the shore. The mini-subs were wet subs, which meant the SEALs would ride immersed in 40-degree ocean water for about 2 hours to reach the shore, using scuba gear and heated suits to survive. Near the breach, the mini-sub would release a group of about 8 SEALs who would swim to the target, install the device, and then slip back into the sea. But the team faced a serious limitation. It would be going in almost blind. Typically, Special Operations Forces have drones overhead during a mission, streaming high-definition video of the target, which SEALs on the ground and senior leaders in far-off command centers can use to direct the strikes in real time. Often, they can even listen in on enemy communications. But in North Korea, any drone would be spotted. The mission would have to rely on satellites in orbit and high-altitude spy planes in international airspace miles away that could only provide relatively low-definition still images. Those images would arrive not in real time, but after a delay of several minutes at best. Even then, they could not be relayed to the mini-subs because a single encrypted transmission might give the mission away. Everything had to be done under a near blackout of communications. If anything awaited the SEALs on shore, they might not know until it was too late. My goodness. Practice for months. Unclear what factors Trump weighed when approving the SEAL mission. 2 of his top national security officials at the time, his national security advisor, John Bolton, and acting defense secretary, declined to comment for this article. Man, John Bolton does not like Trump, and even he'll shut the fuck up. Dude, dude is like a revolutionary like figure in like neocon walrus in walrus politics, man. But I gotta say, the dude will not sacrifice U.S. national security to dunk on Trump. Trump would not do the same thing. And, I'm not a huge fan of John Bolton, but, I'll back the John Bolton school walkout for his prosecution by the DOJ. I'm sure all the youth out there are, standing with John Bolton in solidarity, lighting candles. The submarine neared the North Korean coast and launched 2 mini-subs, motored to a spot about 100 yards from the shore in clear, shallow water. Oh boy. Mission planners had tried to compensate for having no live overhead video by spending months watching how people came and went in the area. They studied fishing patterns and chose a time when boat traffic would be scant. The intelligence suggested that if the SEALs arrived silently in the right location in the dead of night in winter, they would be unlikely to encounter anyone. The night was still and the sea was calm as the mini-subs glided towards the target. Their sensors suggested that intelligence was correct. The shore appeared to be empty. The mini-subs reached the spot where they were supposed to park on the seafloor. There, the team made what they may have been the first of 3 small mistakes. In the darkness, the first mini-sub settled on the seafloor as planned, but the second one overshot the mark and had to do a U-turn. The plan called for the mini-subs to park facing the same way, but after the second subs doubled back, they were pointing in opposite directions. Time was limited, so the group decided to release the shore team in the correct parking issue later. Sliding doors on the sub opened, and the SEALs, all gripping untraceable weapons loaded with untraceable ammunition, swam silently underwater to the shore with the listening device. Every few yards, the SEALs peeked above the black water to scan their surroundings. Everything seemed clear. That might have been a second mistake. Bobbing in the darkness was a small boat. On board was a crew of North Koreans who were easy to miss because the sensors in the SEALs' night vision goggles were designed in part to detect heat, and the wetsuits the Koreans wore were chilled by the cold seawater. The SEALs reached the shore thinking they were alone and started to remove their diving gear. The target was only a few hundred yards away. Back at the mini-subs, the pilots repositioned the sub that was facing the wrong way. With the sliding cockpit doors open for visibility and communication, a pilot revved the electric motor and brought the sub around. That was probably a third mistake. Some SEALs speculated afterwards in briefings that the motor's wake might have caught the attention of the North Korean boat, and if the crew had heard a splash and turned to look around, they might have seen the lights from the sub's cockpits glowing in the dark water. The boat started moving towards the mini-subs. The North Koreans were shining flashlights and talking as if they had noticed something. Some of the mini-subs pilots told officials in debriefings afterwards that from their vantage point, looking up through the clear water, the boat seemed to be a safe distance away, and they had doubted that the mini-sub had been spotted. But the SEALs at the shore saw it differently. In the dark, featureless sea, the boat to them seemed to be practically on top of the mini-subs. With communications blacked out, there was no way for the shore team to confer with the mini-subs. Lights from the boat swept over the water. The SEALs didn't know if they were seeing a security patrol on hunt for them or a simple fishing crew, oblivious to the high-stakes mission unfolding around them. A man from the North Korean boat splashed into the sea. If the shore team got into trouble, the nuclear power sub had a group of SEAL reinforcements standing by with inflatable speedboats. Farther offshore, stealthy rotary aircraft were positioned in U.S. Navy ships with even more special operations troops ready to sweep in if needed. The SEALs faced a critical decision, but there was no way to discuss the next move. The mission commander was miles away on the big submarine. With no drones and a communication blackout, many of the technological advantages that the SEALs normally relied on had been stripped away, leaving a handful of men in wet neoprene, unsure of what to do. As a shore team watched the North Koreans in the water, the senior enlisted SEAL at shore chose a course of action. He wordlessly centered his rifle and fired. The other SEALs instinctively did the same. Anyway, after they fired, they saw that they were dead. They found no guns or uniforms. Basically, they had been civilians diving for shellfish, probably. Anyway, after that, they leave, and that's the end of the mission. So, Trump's SEAL team operation to get monitoring equipment on in North Korea so we can monitor their communications and understand their diplomacy resulted in nothing outside of a bunch of dead North Korean fishermen. Sad. Not much else, but sad. Endangered the SEALs, killed some fishermen, got no intelligence bonus. Most you could really take from this is probably learn some lessons, I guess. Bugbird, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate that. Total failure. Start the front. Mule Team 6. I mean, they did their... I mean, they went in... I mean, considering the circumstances, it's not that crazy that they failed. You can't really blame the SEALs here. Oh gosh. Do we should we cover this before the... I guess we can cover this before. We can cover this before, and then we'll do the Hasan thing. Okay, one more and then the Hasan thing. Okay. I don't know if you guys saw this, and Trump is pushing right now the idea of banning trans people from owning guns. I mean, when I say Trump is pushing it, let me be more specific. His administration is looking into it, and it's being reported by multiple sources that his administration is interested in the idea. The idea of scapegoating trans people as the problem instead of saying the usual Democrat Party response of gun control, or somebody saying mental health. But if you say mental health, what's the thing that comes after that? Okay, let's invest in mental health care. Wait, invest in mental health care? You mean public health care? You mean public investment? You mean social? And then of course, so you've got nowhere to go, really. You can't make the public health care investments necessary, especially with the deficit spending Trump's doing right now, and where he's deciding to make cuts in tax collection and the rest of the government. It's still not significant enough, especially now that he might lose the tariff revenue in order to make those public health investments. So it's not something he was interested in. It's not something he's talked about. It's not something that seems budgetable to him. So talking about mental health is only as useful as to say, call the hotline, not the LGBT one that they shut down and consolidated. I'm talking about, the general one, I guess. Call the hotline, or, the usual, sit and breathe. Breathing exercises might help, something along those lines. So it feels like that they don't want to have the gun control conversation, because polling does indicate that the majority of Americans do want more gun control. Now, whether that is a type of red flag law, restricted red flag law that identifies people who shouldn't have a firearm because they're a danger to themselves or others, whether that means more extensive background checks, waiting periods, or something along the lines of an assault weapons ban, which, is, in my opinion, maybe it's a bit more dubious. At the end of the day, it's more popular to have some more restrictions, because Americans are horrified by what they see. They understand that other countries don't regularly go through this, and they want something done, right? And if they're not willing to make good on the mental health care, hey, let's make the investments, then it's easier to demonize a group of people that you've already demonized through the election, and you've been told by your advisors that those ads you made saying Harris is for they, them actually did quite well. So why not double down on that strategy? So right now, there's a question of whether or not every American has gun rights being considered by the Trump administration, whether that's going to be the message they walk forward with. That they go from the party of, oh, we're going to protect your guns, to the party of, well, if you come out as trans, never mind, you have to turn in your Second Amendment rights, irrespective of the fact that they found no connection between being trans and a type of aggressive, hostile behavior that is directly associated with just being trans, not the higher rates of homelessness, not the higher rates of depression, not the higher rates of drug abuse that comes from being in these socially ostracized and isolated communities, but from being trans itself. Because if you're going to take somebody's guns away, you're going to take somebody's gun rights away, you've got to identify them as a threat. You've got to really prove that they're a threat. You've got to really prove that this person, with not all types of schizophrenia, but with a certain type of schizophrenia, is hearing voices that are telling him to do something, he shouldn't be near a gun. That's the type of stuff you got to prove to take somebody's rights away. Because if not, then you never treated the Second Amendment very seriously to begin with. You never treated the Second Amendment right seriously at all if it's just, oh, I think trans people aren't real, or I think they're silly, therefore. Well, if trans people are just an identity and trans people aren't real, if you really believe that, then how could you ever take their guns away? If you're saying that trans people are just like putting on something like a fad, can you do that with goths? Can you do that with, and even if you were to even get me to agree with this, if you were to get me to agree with this premise, I don't, but if you were to get me to agree with this premise, it makes even less sense. Because if it's a fad, you can't tell people that you don't have rights because you signed up to the local fad that you find distasteful or you find gross. So whether you accept trans-friendly framing, or even if you accept transphobic framing, it doesn't really make sense. You would have to still prove that there's something directly connected, which they haven't. But listen to Joe Rogan here talking about 7 out of X amount of school shooters.
Wonder if any of the woke AI chatbots have talked to any of these trans school shooters.
They might have.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, the last one, yeah, I don't know.
Bro, it's like 7 of the last X amount of trans, 7 in a row have been trans.
That's not true. That's not, what is he talking about? 7 in a row. I don't even know what shootings he's referencing. I can think of 2 off the back of my head. Maybe I'm missing some, but 7 in a row? That's not even close to true. That's not in the same environment as true. If he was to say, hey, I've noticed that in the recently highly publicized school shootings, there was an average rate they are higher on average trans people in this category than the average population in reference to the 1 to 2 to 3% of the population that they make up. If they make up 8% of school shootings, but they're 3% of the population, there's a discrepancy. There's no like even attempt to do 7 of the last school shooting. That's not true. There's been a ton of, there was that crazy mass shooting in Texas at the parade. There have been other crazy shootings. Hell, I can count the amount of Russophiles that have been involved in high-profile American shootings on the same amount of hands that I can. I mean, with the same amount of numbers, probably in the same range, as I can trans people. I mean, what is it that hormones make them more? What even would the theory be? That HRT makes people more aggressive?
Except one was non-binary, which is just diet trans.
It is.
Right? That's diet trans. That's trans without the sugar.
I just don't get it. Like, I felt suicidal. Like, stay at home and kill yourself. Like, don't go into schools.
Yeah, or just go for a walk.
Yeah, that would be good, too.
You know,
yeah.
the problem is some people get to a certain point in their life and they have no friends and no community and no identity and no life. And they're not successful and they feel like shit. And then they have gender dysphoria on top of that. And then they're probably on a bunch of SSRIs. Which RFK Jr. is going to apparently do some sort of a large-scale research into the connection between mass shootings and psychiatric drugs, because it is real, and everyone knows it, and it's just this dirty secret that no one talks about because all the media is paid off by the pharmaceutical drug companies.
Well, here's the problem, right? If somebody has mental health issues that could be medicated, depending on what the mental health issue is, trying to say that it was the drug or the lack of effectiveness of the drug, that it didn't have a high enough dosage, or that it was just the fact that, you know, wasn't medicated enough. Because it could be that, oh, like if somebody who takes medication goes and does a shooting, if they're taking medication for something like, you know, like really intense case of schizophrenia, it could not be that the drug did it. It could be that they didn't take enough of a dosage. I mean, like this is something that's going to matter on it's going to matter on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, I'm sure there's some drugs, mental health care drugs, that aren't as effective. I'm sure. But in the way that's being suggested by department officials currently at the White House of just, we need to take the guns away from the trans people, that seems less focused on making sure that people who are taking psychiatric drugs and are handling firearms are in a good mental state. That seems more like you're just targeting a protected group.
Companies, and nobody wants to make this correlation connection because you also risk the wrath of all these people that are on them saying, I'm on them and I'm not doing anything. It's not the pills. I need these to function. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't know how your brain works. But the reality is most of these people that have committed mass murder are on psychiatric medication.
Well, they are. And I'm on SSRIs that I'm trying to get off of right now because I've been on for 10 years, Zoloft.
Oh.
And I don't like it. So I hadn't liked it for a long time, and even dealing with like mental.
Because to me, the first thing when I read something like, oh, they were on medication, isn't, oh my God, did the medication do it? It's, oh, they could have, and I'm not to say anyone who takes medication is bad enough or in a really bad place, but that's to say, oh, their symptoms or their case was so bad or so intense that they had to medicate it. And that, depending on the medication, is particularly strong medication. So again, it could be that, you know, on average, people with mental health care, mental health problems that might be more likely to do shootings are also the same exact people that are much more likely to take these medicines.
Health care, I'm like, I don't think I need this. And they're like, well, it's better you stay on them. I'm like, this is odd because it's having the opposite thoughts, you know? And so
it's having the opposite thoughts, meaning it makes you feel bad?
Depressed.
Yeah.
It wants me, like, really, like, I gained weight. I was doing, like, really bad mentally for a while because of certain things. And it was, I took myself off of them for 5 days and I felt good.
Okay. That's enough of that. Okay. Let me see. Steve Rosenberg released a new segment on the Russian state headlines. Always got to check Steve Rosenberg before we do the big main segment people have been waiting for. I don't think he has. Nope. No new segment. Rip-a-roni. Rip-a-roni. Ignore everything. This deserves your attention. What is this? What is this? Speaker of the House announces Trump was an FBI informant tasked with taking down Epstein. Okay. Okay. Is this true? Do we have a second source besides unusual whales? Do we have like a CNN? He likes, if you're an FBI informant, why would you be saying things like he likes his women on the younger side? And if that is true, why would he want it to be covered up? If I was I helped take down the biggest sex pest in American history that is so notorious that his name is known by basically everyone in the United States. Yeah, I helped take him down. Cover it up, cover it up, cover it up. That doesn't really make much sense, does it? You think Trump wouldn't want to brag about taking down Jeffrey Epstein? I took down Bill Clinton's friend. You know, he would have a ball with it. Oh my God, you kidding me? I don't see how it's related. Sounds like a bunch of nonsense to me. And by the way, if you become an informant for the FBI, you know, somebody has to use, I hate to put it this way. You know that guy, has anybody here watched The Sopranos? Remember that dude, Vito, who ends up being an informant? I hate to spoil this for anybody, but The Sopranos been out for a bit. You have to be in the mafia in order to be an informant, right? And I'm not saying that we know that Donald Trump engaged in some activity, but I'm saying that he had to be in good for Jeffrey with him in order to make that stuff work. How did he get in good with Jeffrey in the first place? Was he in good with Jeffrey and then he went to the FBI and told them everything because he was so appalled by what he was seeing? Or did the FBI find out, inform Donald Trump, and he thought it was best that he cooperated? I have no clue. I haven't been around in a while. Love the beard, Dylan. I do like my beard. Helps during the winter. That's the main reason I have it. In those wide open fields in Ukraine, I mean, the wind bite is terrible when the chill comes in. Wind rushes across the fields, really bites at you. Anyway, here it is.
It has great. And he's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
An FBI informant. If this is all true, then release it all. Then show Trump to be the hero of the century who took down Jeffrey Epstein. Do we all really think that if Donald Trump took down Jeffrey Epstein and that was the end of the story, that he wouldn't go and brag about it on every platform? According to the YouTube poll, about 50% of my audience knows who I am. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Wow, it looks like you're right. The neoliberal debate perv war tourist. Wow, thank you for writing out all of my best qualities there. Thank you, Danabo. I really love you. Best editor in town. Best editor to ever do it. Truly legendary. Okay, the only stories I have left are the Trump admin Biden era plan, getting the Trump admin destroying the Biden era plan on airlines, the Trump Europe call, and the Ukraine stuff. I mean, not the Ukraine stuff, the Hasan stuff. So what order should we do this in? You know what? I think we do this in Dylan didn't deny it, though. I didn't deny it. I think we do this in what order? 1 second. I want to use the bathroom desperately, so I just need her. We'll take, you know what? I'll use the bathroom, and then we'll do the Hasan stuff, and then cover everything else. That's what I think we'll do. Let me turn on some music. I'll come back, and then we'll cover it.
A curd is a curd.
I am back. I've returned. Okay. Ready to have this conversation, everybody? Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh me, oh my. Oh me, oh my. Oh me, oh my. It looks like many have left. Good. Smaller crowd. Smaller, more intimate crowd. Okay. Let's talk about this. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the situation where my address was filed online and then spread around a bit. It was spread around by a YouTuber and then spread around by a streamer. And in that process, my 9-digit zip code got shared around. I made a video about it. Wasn't too happy. And since then, there's been a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of dialogue about this online. And I wanted to just give some details and give some responses to some of the things I've seen, because there's been a little bit of confusion. And on top of the confusion, there's been some updates where Progressive Victory has formally decided to release a statement on what happened with my information. And I'm the only person they actually name by name. You know, it says it was our PAX FEC filing that was inadvertently doxed Dylan Burns and other creators. I think I might be mentioned by name because my address, my full address, was in the document that they ultimately released. But before we get into anything, before we get into what Hasan said about not knowing who I am or what I do, and forgetting who I was on stream, before we get into any examples of like, oh, here's an example of him knowing me, or oh, is he joking, or any of that, I just wanted to quickly say, because I've had some people reach out and talked about like, hey, Dylan, so-and-so showed this or so-and-so showed that. You should post there. And I just want to be very clear at the very start of this. Under no circumstance, under no situation, in no context, is anybody associated with me in any way. If you want to be in my Discord, if you want to be in my chat, if you want to say you have anything to do with me or be in my comment section, is anybody going to be posting any other streamer or content creator's address anywhere? And especially not in my channels or anywhere associated with me. I can't be everywhere at once. I can't go into every other community and be a cop and take out binoculars and look around to see if people are posting people's address in like Kiwi Farms or wherever. But ultimately, like on those places, like I don't want to spend any time. And in my instance, or at least in my case, I don't care too much about what happens on the forums, because it was when this got blown up and when people paid attention to it and when a streamer streamed it with 660,000 VOD views that I found out about it. So at the end of the day, I just want to be clear, under no circumstance is anybody going to post anybody's address in my community of any streamer for any revenge purpose. It's not going to make me happy. It doesn't fix anything. It's wrong to do just on its face. And I don't think it's going to do anything for anyone. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to say. Now, moving on from that, I wanted to get a few things out of the way. Some people have been misquoting me about a moment where I say like something's a nothing burger on stream. During the stream where I found out I was going to stream and I was going to do a normal stream, and right before I streamed, I was informed, to give people some background context before I start responding to stuff, I was informed then that my docs was getting shared around, right? I was informed only then. And so I went live seeing that Hasan had looked at something and that these people looked at something. I went live being ready to deal with that. And then people had gone in the chat and said, Dylan, that's just the zip code. And I was like, oh, is it? And I said, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. Because I thought, oh my gosh, a 5-digit zip code, that's like 140,000 people. And I talk all the time. I live in gorgeous Prince George's. You know, I'm not like hidden about my Maryland pride worldwide or whatever. But I double check, and you know, after stream, when everything's done, and it's actually no, our stream progressed, but you know, definitely after it was done, and I went and rechecked all the files. No, it was my 9-digit zip code, and that's the first clarification I want to make. It was a 9-digit zip code. I did clarify at the start of my video that I released. I say at the very start, Hasan did not post my full address or stream on his stream the full address. He streamed my 9-digit zip code. Now, in effect, does a 9-digit zip code differ that much from a full address? A little bit. A full address is somewhere you can directly say into a phone, hey, I'm swatting. Well, you don't tell the cops you're swatting, okay? If you're swatting 101, you don't tell the cops, hello, I need to swat somebody. You know, somebody says, hey, and here's Dylan's address, and then they tell the police I'm doing something horrible to swat me. Or they order a bunch of pizzas to my house. When it's just my street, then that's something you can use to find out where I live, to find out my address. because that's what a 9-digit zip code shows people. They show the street you live on. So what Hasan essentially showed his people in that FEC filing that he showed on his stream was not my home address so somebody could enter it into a map and go there. They just showed the street that they could go to where my home would be on. So it's not that different, but it is different. And I can understand how somebody might not know the difference between a 5-digit and a 9-digit zip code, because I'm sure most people don't care too much about zip codes unless you're being very, very anonymous online. Obviously, going from 7.3 billion people to 140,000, you know, for a lot of people, that's still scary. But for me, that never mattered. My Twitch name is DylanBurnsTV, okay? I wasn't exactly trying to cover myself in anonymity on the internet, right? I thought it was simple branding. I didn't want to come up with some name like I don't know, like Red Mushroom Eater. I don't know what the name would be. Crabber Extraordinaire. I have no clue. I just wanted like my normal name and to put TV at the end because I broadcast, right? So it wasn't that I wanted to be particularly anonymous. So a 5-digit zip code, I wouldn't really care about. 9-digit, people can walk down my street. And the thing that went on top of it is that the video that Hasan was watching during the stream was also giving people a step-by-step guide on how to get more information, how to go look at the files themselves. And in the files themselves, you see my full address. And so I wanted to talk about both what PV had to say and what Hasan had to say. But I need to give you guys a history lesson here as after we read this PV statement, because what they said is true, but I disagree with part of it. But what they said is true, and it's good that Progressive Victory themselves have decided to talk about the fact that, well, they basically doxed me and a bunch of other creators, which I appreciate them at least coming out and claiming responsibility for. It's the responsible thing to do. Progressive Victory. It was our PAC's FEC filing that inadvertently doxed Dylan Burns and other creators we worked with last year. Creators who use our FEC filings as a source are not at fault. We are a digital third place with a volunteer electoral organization sprinkled on top. Our goal is to become infamous for being the Democrats' greatest threat in the primary, but their greatest ally in the general. What a laudable goal. Our leadership is, I don't want to do the ats, but there's Sam and a bunch, there's the deputy director and like and then there's like a community leader and many more volunteers. PV hired Brianna Wu in a contract position in 2023 when we were new in the space and trying to make contact with more creators. We cut ties with Brianna in December of 2023, and for good reason. As for Destiny, last year our media program consisted of trying to unite the audiences of as many political creators as possible in order to get them to cross over onto each other's content and advertise PV's organizing program. What we quickly discovered is that most creators have very little desire to do either. With that, we scuttled our media program and, after the election, have not continued to mix liberal creators with our leftist values. Or like Brianna and Destiny, they represent all the liberal creators. This year, with stronger community leadership, we have doubled down on the things we are best at, building our community and helping elect the candidates that they choose to support. Below, we have attached... Look at that. Scroll right down. Below, we have attached our revised mission statement, published just prior to the drama unfolding. Drama. To be clear, it's when you say drama here, it's just that people can go look at my address. Drama sometimes I consider like a back and a forth. Like they called me a bitch. They called me a hoe. But no, that's where my grandpa threw the football with me. that's not really I get what there's, it's just like the catch-all term people use. It's just kind of funny in this context. Unfolding. As you can see, our core organizing strategy, basically, you can read this mission if you want to. This is their mission. This is what they've put. Built by the internet for America, Progressive Victory is a new kind of political institution, seamlessly marrying the electoral impact and volunteer power of traditional progressive organizations with the culture and community of digital third places. Dedicated to pushing the Democratic Party to the left, we partner with left-aligned content creators to achieve their disaffected, terminally online audiences, converting them into lifelong, on-the-ground organizers, providing the necessary structure and resources to empower viewers into volunteers. This is always what I wanted them to do more of, and I'm happy that they're focusing on this more. I want to be upfront with you guys. Yes, PV's at fault. We're going to talk about exactly how in a second. And we're going to talk about maybe some disagreements I have with some of this in a second. But I do want to say that this, I think, is a much better focus of their time, trying to get creators, whether they're liberal or left, people who want to make sure that our democracy is protected and that the most vulnerable amongst us are protected. Like, we get more of them and their audiences go and canvas and organize and participate in on-the-ground activism, whether it be canvassing, whether it be helping on a picket line, wherever it might be, helps get these people who are going out there more knowledge of politics. It helps get them more integrated in politics, helps them participate more in politics. And the people on the other side, I know they can appreciate the canvassing. I remember when I went to Ohio with PV, how appreciative the local leaders were, Progressive Victory, somebody asked PV with a question mark, Progressive Victory, of having more canvassers that could help. And some of the local politicians being interviewed about issues that matter to them in their community and being able to concentrate on stuff like that. I enjoyed my time there. And that's what I got paid for, by the way, if anybody's interested about the 1K, which, by the way, in all of this, as soon as like the zip code got busted out, you know, nobody seemed to be asking me any more questions of Dylan, the ethics of the $1,000 you took. Nobody's really asked me about it. Nobody's really confronted me on that. But I can be clear. I was, let me read this last thing and we can talk about why I joined PV, because I think some people might be interested in that. One final note: scrutinize us, criticize us, love us, hate us, call us out if you like, but our community is not Zionist. This is a direct response to the accusation that Progressive Victory was like a Zionist organization. Hey, thank you, Canner3, for the gifted sub. Appreciate it. But our community is not Zionist. We backed Mamdani, and not Mamdani. I don't think they want to brag about it as much, but they also backed Jamal Bowman. I remember being in those voice calls as they were talking about getting people out there to canvass for Jamal Bowman, do a stream for Jamal Bowman, and stuff like that. I remember that voice call. You'll just have to let our future actions speak for themselves. Okay. So, what do we have to say about this? First off, yes, they're right. And I said this in the first video. And after PV, and they did do this, reached out to me personally, their executive director. And I do want to say I appreciate their executive director, Sam, reaching out to me directly and talking to me and, you know, accepting responsibility, saying it's 100% their fault. But I mean, I can describe why I joined PV, and then I can say, because people say it's a Zionist group, it's this, it's that. Again, they backed people like Mamdani and they backed people like Jamal Bowman. It's not a Zionist organization. I don't think it really, as an organization, has ever really came out and said, this is our position on Israel, whatever. But they've supported people who are explicitly against military aid to Israel and are kind of the poster childs for what the right points to and says, these are the people in Congress who are fighting against Israel, right? They spent time to dedicate resources to those people, canvassers to those people, interviews to those people, stream time to those people. Thank you, YOLO Swag, what a great name, for the gifted, well, not the gifted sub, they just subbed. So what they did, PV, eventually, is they got people out to canvass in Ohio and get people's like information to, you know, hey, what do you care about this election, in advance of canvassers who would come back to those same people later during the election time and be like, hey, you know, this candidate has XYZ to say about these issues that we know matter to you. This was kind of like, I do military stuff a lot now, so I'll just say it was like a shaping operation, canvassing wise. And they also did some interviews with some politicians. That's the type of stuff that I got paid for, as they were trying to support progressive candidates, like they said, in the primary and in the general, but also generally support Democrats in the general. Either way, that was Progressive Victory's end, but it got there through like a rocky road. Its leadership changed a lot. Its priorities changed a lot. They would promise things and then kind of pull the rug on it because they realized that they overpromised. And I think a lot of people at the organization were people pleasers, that they really wanted to make sure everybody was happy. So people throw ideas out and they'd be like, yeah, cool, that idea is great. But then they have to think about budget. They have to think about time. And, you know, it's a new field and they're experimenting. So I don't hold them to account too much when it comes to like some of the like bumps in the road, but their lawyers messed up bad when it came to filing the FEC. They did not communicate our addresses being posted anywhere. They did not communicate our addresses would be used for this, or that this was going to be posted if I knew in advance, and if this was communicated to me by either Brianna Wu, either Riley Grace Rochong, Sam, the executive director, any of these people, I would have gotten a like a mailbox, or I would have gotten an LLC, or I would have done something so that people could see the monetary disclosures which are required by law, but nobody needs to know my home address. That's not required by law. Nobody is required to know my 9-digit zip code. That is not required by law. The FEC filing is. And either because they were overstretched, overburdened, or any of these things, as I've said before, I think this led to them not doing a good job on the FEC filing. And I got hit pretty hard because it's a house that I don't think I'm going to be, abandoning anytime soon. And it also is the house that recently burnt down. So I can't currently be swatted at that address. So that is a current positive. That is the positive thinking, that our house burnt down, so I can't be swatted there. But when we rebuild it, we have some fun things to expect. Some fun things to look forward to. Either way, though, again, they shouldn't have posted it. It was a huge mistake on their part. If anybody's legally liable, it would probably be Progressive Victory. I see people talking about like suing Hasan or like holding him. We need to bring Hasan. No, I don't think it's necessary. I don't want to do any calls to action. I have no interest in a call to action. The only call to action would be if you see somebody literally posting other people's street address, try to report that. That's bad, right? That would be the only call of action I would have. But there's no interest because I don't think it would go anywhere. I don't think there's anything there for obvious reasons. Because this is what Progressive Victory did, is they put it out there when they shouldn't have. When they say that the creators who use our FAC filing as a source are not at fault, I'm going to be honest here. And I'm going to be honest as somebody who hopes Progressive Victory does good work in the future. I know that whether or not they believe that, that's something they probably have to say. Hasan is a gigantic creator in the space. He is the leftist streaming creator on Twitch. And if you want to be, definitely if you're saying things like, we don't want the liberals to interfere with the leftist values, the type of people they're trying to appeal to, many people, I associate with, people who care about labor power, people who call themselves leftists, they want to appeal to those people. They want to attract those people. They want to get those people on the ground canvassing. That's their priority. Getting involved in any conflict between different streamers who might be interested in doing that in the future or might be aligned with their values gets in the way of their goal. Their goal is Progressive Victory. Their goal is not progressive infighting. Their goal is not to morally grandstand and say, it's not good. Yeah, we messed up, but it's not good that when you were sharing financial disclosure information that you showed somebody's street address or where they live and their street. Like that's not their priority. Their priority is to pressure people in primaries and pressure people in a general election. So I see people are kind of upset about them saying what they're saying, like about creators. But I understand, like, this is politics. I'm not a child. I'm not naive. And so they wanna stay influential. And so I don't really hold that too much against them. But that doesn't mean that I don't need to say what I think, which is, look, again, the vast majority of blame falls with Progressive Victory, but Hasan still shouldn't have shared my 9-digit zip code. Nobody should really be sharing my 9-digit zip code. Even if it's in a public filing, even if the public filing was done without my knowledge and the legality is dubious, that it doesn't mean you can share that on stream or be publicizing that, especially when you're trying to position me as part of the like this was a Destiny paid off organization. Mind you, Jamal Bowman, Mondami, these are not Destiny favored. These are not people Destiny really loves. This isn't like, it's just trying to associate Destiny a ton with the leadership or organization of the group. It wasn't his group. Or the Zionist thing, which that threw me for a loop because again, Lycan, Mondami, Jabal Bowman, this is a bad empanada talking point more, but this is being streamed on Hasan's channel at the same time that my 9-digit zip code's being shown, and there was basically a how-to guide on how to find my street address with these documents, and he's clarifying me as like a Zionist. A Zionist? When do I talk about, what do they mean by a Zionist? When do I go into details of Zionism or the need of the Jewish people to have XYZ? I concentrate on the war in Ukraine. And when I do talk about Israel, it's usually either to critique Benjamin Netanyahu or to talk about the brutality of the war. Like, why would I be so classified as a Zionist? Is it that I don't like have a red triangle in my name and want to push Israel into the sea? Is it because I don't talk about it enough? Like, I don't know why the PV doesn't have anything really to do with Israel. They've supported candidates that are extremely critical of Israel. I mean, they didn't only support candidates who are extremely critical of Israel. In the example of Mondami and Jamal Bowman, they worked with creators who were. Lycan, I know, is extremely critical of Israel. And I also know that Frogan did an event with them. Frogan, the same Frogan who has been critiquing Israel continuously for the entirety of the war after October 7th and critiqued Israel before. So I would understand if we had to show this fight. Number one, I would understand if we had to find this financial disclosure and show it for like public interest reasons. Like, hey, look, we got to show Dylan's bought by big Zionism, but I wasn't, and I'm not. So I don't understand like what the public use of showing my 9-digit zip code was. And you could easily have blurred my 9-digit zip code and not have showed it. Not to mention the fact that the source that Hasan is using, Bad Empanada, like a few days later after he streamed this Bad Empanada video on his channel, which and then showed his tweets, which showed my 9-digit zip code, and Bad Empanada basically showed a how-to guide because in his view, it was publicly filed. It doesn't really matter how it got there. You know, tough shit, right? He doesn't really like, you know, lefty faker libtard, you know, so you know, tough shit. But a few days later, we've got Bad Empanada getting called by Hasan basically as an unstatable. You can't talk about him. His name's banned in the community. You can't talk about him. He doesn't think it's ethical. It's not moral. So this person who's being used as a source is putting out this video, who's putting out my 9-digit zip code on social media, is getting put out there a few days before, but a few days later, he's so bad, you can't associate with him, can't even say his name in chat. His name, you can say Bad Empanada in my chat. I didn't block him on Twitter. You know, so, I mean, Twitch, in Hasan's perspective, he's an untouchable. He's an untouchable. And so that's the person you're relying on to make sure that they don't, look, all you need to do is just check. Look at the tweets before you bring them on stream. That's all you need to do. Because there's a decent chance, even though, like, my editor thinks this was malicious, and a lot of people think this was malicious, there's a decent chance that this was Hasan being sent the tweet and just showing it on screen without checking it beforehand and then scrolled through the money without even thinking about, oh, is that a 9-digit zip code? It was malicious. See, Danabo is positive it was malicious. And this is the reason Danabo thinks it's malicious. It's because of the way that Hasan responded. And again, 95% of the blame lies with Progressive Victory. If Hasan had watched what I had to say on my video that I posted before he said this, I would be clear that I put basically all the blame on Progressive Victory, and the only blame I lay anywhere near him is the wide circulation of the docs.
Blood libel.
But here is what Hasan said, responding, saying that he doesn't know who I am.
Wait, someone just said, what is this? This guy just got banned. Wait, hold on. What the fuck? Someone just said I doxed. I streamed the address of Dylan Burns. Just said you streamed his Addy. Is that true? Why the fuck would that be true? Do you think I know who the fuck Dylan Burns is? Or what he does, let alone find his address and then stream it? What are these people saying, bro? Dylan Distance, that's my address, buddy. Are we just fucking... You still haven't denied it? What the fuck? Are people just like now they've decided to just like make new and unique and creative things up? Is that what's going on?
Occurred is occurred.
Void go.
Me personally, I'm too busy picking up chicks to know about Dylan Burns.
He's too cool to know about Dylan Burns. Okay, so the way people have been reacting, there's two ways to look at this, right? Okay, let me start with the very good faith way to look at it. The best faith way to look at it, it's still not good. It's still not good. The best faith way to look at it is that Hasan is humegaloling me. He's because I'm a small streamer, small creator. I'm but a peasant. He is but the king at the top of the pyramid. And this is like a humegalol, right? Which, I mean, that responding to like a claim like that without looking into it with just like a humegalol, I don't know. I don't know if that's very responsible or even better than the alternative, which is what everybody else has been saying, and is also, I think, a staunch possibility, which he's like pretending to have like no idea who I am. Which there's two ways to look at that. He's either pretending not to know who I am at all, which is then we're in La La Land, okay? Or he's pretending not to know much about me, which honestly, at first, I was like, maybe. But then, after I was sent the amount of clips in the last like few hours from my editor, from some associates, from people just clipping stuff on social media and sharing around, Hasan has talked about me quite a bit since March 2022. He talked about me in March of 2022, April of 2023, November of 2023, February of 2024, May of 2024. And I'm just like listing off names and like YouTube links and like Twitter links that we can go to. I don't know which one we should click on. I keep getting surprised by more and more of these links that keep getting thrown at me. But I would be, honestly speaking, well, I would definitely upload more videos on YouTube about Hasan. When it comes to time spent on stream talking about each other, I think me and Hasan are roughly actually in the same category. When it comes to the amount of times it's been mentioned, maybe not amount of time talked, because Hasan will just kind of make a piffy comment, but the amount of times mentioned, Hasan has mentioned me quite a bit. And when he does mention me, it doesn't have to do with like policy differences. When I mention Hasan, I'll talk about policy. I'll talk about some disagreements we have. I'll say, hey, that isn't true, right? When it's Hasan mentioning me, it's, well, one second. Where is it? I think we've got like compilations here. Should we do the famous one, the war pervert one? Here's a compilation that was put together.
Someone just said I doxed. I streamed the address of Dylan Burns. Just said you streamed his addy. Is that true? Why the fuck would that be true? Do you think I know who the fuck Dylan Burns is? Or what he does, let alone find his address and then stream it? For those of you who said, chat, has he responded to Dylan Burns' post, by the way, before getting clapped? If you think that I would entertain such a psychotic thing ever in my life, I don't know what to tell you. There is nothing more perverted and psychopathic. It basically betrays the position that you have. Like, oh, I genuinely care about this. That's why I went out there. Not because I'm like a fucking war tourist pervert, but I went out there because I care about these people. So what am I doing? I'm like fucking using this as an opportunity to be like, yeah, look how bad this guy is. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Dylan Burns, Hunter Avalon, Hutch, Destiny's Own Personal Chef. Like, this is what happened. This is what took place. Okay. And the pack actually did unironically raise a bunch of money off of like people who thought that they were giving money to a political action committee that was going to go around and do door knocking campus operations, which they did, but then also turned around and basically
I see somebody in chat just said as of birds. They got little nicknames for me. My goodness. I would have preferred Pravi Sector Burns, but if we're going, okay.
Created this fucking like pay structure for a bunch of Destiny's friends. Debate. Dylan Burns and BPF debate. Stop watching when it gets too cringe. Debate. Dylan Burns and BPF debate LGBTQ and children's media by Politically Provoked. A 3-hour video with 4,000 views. No thanks, my friend. I think I'm going to skip that one.
Mind you, this is like one of like multiple clips put together. I know Danabo put a clip together. I don't know how many of these we should watch of how many times Hasan. I mean, you can go back in the day. Hasan was reading articles that we were both in by the New York Times. Look, either way, if he wants to Humegalol me, he can Humegalol me if he wants to. But to do this or to, you know, oh, who is Dylan? I never heard of Dylan. In response to a question about, you know, hey, was your zip code? Was it his address? No, you just showed a video that showed how to get to my address. You yourself only showed my zip code. It just feels like a dodgy way of engaging. When somebody said, do you deny it? And he just laughed. Like, how am I supposed to interpret that? This is why my editor is like slamming against me right now in the DMs, like saying Dylan's malicious. Like, for me, it's not hard to imagine Hasan stumbled into this, didn't realize he streamed my 9-digit zip code, just wanted to say I was paid by Israel and some Zionist pack or something, and like misconstrue the pack, which in and of itself is already kind of an embarrassing lie and is at the very least extremely disingenuous. And then after not realizing the 9-digit zip code was there, now doesn't want to address it because, you know, 9-digit zip code's actually a lot of information. I'm sure Hasan wouldn't want his 9-digit zip code being posted on the internet. You literally worked for Senator Gravel, a person he allegedly admired. Hey, there's actually a clip about that, I think, in this compilation here that Danbo put together. I am.
While in direct conversation with their audiences. If you're watching CNN, MSNBC, Fox, you can disagree with the position or have a question. Yelling at the TV does nothing. Dylan Burns TV. 21 to 30.
See, that doesn't sound good. Dylan Burns TV. What the? Why?
Dylan Burns TV
2020
2020 presidential campaign. But in my Twitch community, it's the exact opposite. Wait, that dude worked with Mike Gravel? Isn't he like a ruthless neoliberal? Am I wrong? How the fuck did he go from working with Mike Gravel to like...
To what?
Being like the type of dude who says stuff like one of Gravel's biggest fucking takes is that he's a designated...
He doesn't know any of my positions, so he couldn't say a position.
That's crazy. What the fuck? 21-year-old who wants to make money. I mean,
for those of you who said
so weird seeing that old apartment.
Responded to Dylan Burns' post, by the way, before getting clapped. If you think that I would entertain such a psychotic thing ever in my life, I don't know what to tell you. There is nothing more perverted and psychopathic.
Do you think I know who the fuck Dylan Burns is? Or what he does, let alone find his address and then stream it? Yeah. Dylan Burns, Hunter Avalon, Hutch, Destiny's own personal chef. Like, this is what happened. This is what took place.
Ah, man. Bizarre, man. Bizarre. So bizarre. You know, Hasan's actually kind of right, though. I mean, when you think about it, like, when he says, I don't know who Dylan is or what he does, he's right. I mean, he's not right about not knowing who I am as a person. He knows who I am as a person. He said some, if you don't know anything about somebody at all, and you say those type of vile things he said, but he is right. He doesn't really know much about the work I do. He doesn't really know much about me as a person. He's never met me. I've never met him. But anytime that I've engaged with his content and critiqued it, or I've tried to, you know, be like, hey, you know, here's some critiques. The only response I've gotten is, oh, he's a neoliberal, or XYZ, or, oh, isn't that you know, that war pervert dude? Like, him calling me a war tourist pervert. Like, that's the go-to now attack against me. Like people will just call me like a war tourist pervert, and I'll be like, what do I do that's war tourism? Nobody has any idea what they're saying. Anybody has no idea. War tourism, it's not for fun. It's not enjoyable to have drones fly above your head and have to jump into a trench. I don't like, it's not fun to hear story after story. I spend like half my time interviewing refugees about how people lost everything. It's very sad. You know, there's things I'd much rather film for fun. Maybe like some crabbing. Maybe like I would do, like, if I wanted to do journalism for fun, I would do boxing journalism. I love boxing. I'd love to do some journalism around that. This isn't tourism. But he doesn't know anything about my work, so he doesn't know that, so he sort of never asserted that. What he didn't like back in the day was that I interviewed Ukrainians that critiqued him. And in the way that they critiqued him, it was from an imperialist perspective. It was, in some ways, it was an anti-colonial perspective. They were talking about getting displaced from their homes, being replaced with settlers, having everything taken from them, the right to self-defense and sovereignty, the type of authoritarian model Russia was bringing in. They talked about all sorts of stuff, as well as critiques of what Hasan had said in the past. But because there was critiques of what Hasan had said in the past, because Ukrainians reacted to the statements of the largest political streamer on Twitch, because we thought that might have some significance, might have some interest. How do streamers talk about the war? Let's get Ukrainian opinions on it. And the disinfantilization of it at the time, I just never understood. Where it's like, oh, it's gross for you to record them and to get their testimony. Where he interviews Houthis, he interviews people about their experience. He's asked people who experience things what they think about, like, tragedy, what they think of what other politicians have said, or XYZ, or he's a public figure. His statements have scrutiny. It's not like I held a gun to these people's head. They agreed to take part in the interview. But because of that, an interview that I'm positive he did not watch, he called the stuff that I showed out of context. I did everything possible. I gave preambles into every clip to give it context. Ever since that moment, I guess it's just been like, I don't know. I guess it's just completely he just held a grudge. I mean, this is what this sounds like to me, honestly. Honestly speaking, it sounds like he's got a grudge. Like when I critique Hasan, when I talk about Hasan, it's because he said something on Ukraine that I disagree with, that I think silly, that I think is stupid, I think is misinformed, that I don't like what he said. When I get mentioned, it's just to like call me a war pervert, or to be like, oh, that's that Dylan fella, and like dismissively, or now to show my address. And in this case, like, a zip code is not my street address, but a zip code that's 9 digits will show my street. And so if you're like showing a video that's calling me like a Zionist, like a hardcore, describing in a way that I think is dishonest, and then afterwards, as I'm like, yeah, I don't like the 9-digit zip code being out there. People come to you, and your response isn't like, oh, what was posted, what was shown, or like X says, like, Dylan, who's Dylan? Again, I got no call to action. I've got nothing I'm like demanding here from like Hasan. If I wanted anything from Hasan, it would probably just be to, like, in the future, just show the financials. If my $1,000 is so horrible that I took, I'll talk to him on his stream about it. If the $1,000 got me bought by Israel somehow, or the $1,000 is like a Destiny slush fund, I will do an interview with anybody. It could be him. It could be some journalists as well. As if that is the deep, dark truth he needs to get to the bottom of. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to have a conversation. And I just don't think that he's really, not only did he not engage with the bad empanada stuff, I think, fairly. I know for a part of the video, he literally just walked away as bad empanada went on and on and on. But I think just this reaction is, I mean, he's a grown man. How old is Hasan? Can I Google that quick? How old is Hasan? He's 34. Got you. Okay. Got you. 10 years my senior. 10 years my senior. Look, I don't even need him to like go out and apologize. I don't need an apology. Just don't share it again in the future. Maybe get rid of the VOD. That could be useful. And that's really it. That's all I would want is just delete the VOD. Just delete the VOD and just don't really show it again in the future. If you want answers about the $1,000 I took so I could flow to Ohio in the brief period of time I had between going to the front line of a war zone and coming back to visit my family in the States, I'll be happy to talk about it at any point. I'm an open book. Apparently more open than I'd like to be when it comes to where I live. But I mean, I'm not hiding anything. And I just don't see any of the even perceived public interest that came from disclosing any of this. So this all seems like an unnecessary mess, both from where PV takes a majority of the blame from doxing and to the spreading of it on a VOD that had 660,000 views. A lot of people, a lot of screenshots, lots of screenshots. But that's just the way the wind blows. Womp womp. Oh, anyway, if you want to support my content, you can go to DylanBurns.tv, donate, or Dylan Burns TV on YouTube and see my documentaries. I'm going to be releasing one on Pokrovsk in the near future. That's the type of transparency I'd like. Transparency of eyeballs on my films. It was never a secret y'all getting paid. Well, of course. Talk about it publicly. It's just the first time they're hearing about it. Okay, I think I said everything I needed to say. Are there any questions? Because, again, I'm an open book here, and I don't want to look like I'm hiding anything. I'm going to make sure that everybody, that I'll answer any inquiries. Let me bring it back over here. Lego head versus small head. Lego head, of course. Don't take anything less than him coming to Ukraine. I would be very happy if he interviewed a displaced person from the Donetsk region. That's always been my ask. My ask has always been that. I would love it if Hasan interviewed a displaced person from the Donetsk region. I think it could really have an impact. I don't even want him to talk to me about the war. I'll talk to him about the war if he wants to talk about the war. I certainly have things I could talk to him about the war about. But I think it'd be much better if he platformed Ukrainians. Did you buy a snack on that flight to Ohio? No. The flight to Ohio to me was very short because I was used to like transatlantic flights. So I think I probably just slept the whole way. If I remember correctly, but I can't remember. Plus, there's never good sold snacks on airplanes. It's like, I don't know, you can get like a soda, but then they'll give you sodas at different points if the flight is really long. It's included in the cost. He was very mad that the YouTube vid said he doxed you. No, the YouTube vid said doxed, and then it had 3 faces on it. 3 things on it. PV, Bad Empanada, and him. Again, if that's the problem, then it's just the same problem that Hasan's always had, which is he doesn't want to sit down for 5 fucking seconds and watch a video or read past the headline. The reason why they were on one hot side, it was PV. The information went from PV to BE, went from BEE to Hasan. That was the ladder.
A curd is a curd.
Hey, Rachel Atwood, thanks for the $2. You should interview Atesh Crimean partisans. That'd be interesting. That also would be interesting, considering his past statements. Anyway, I got nothing else to say about this. I think we can move on now, yeah? Fantastic. Are we done? Wait, Danabo, you asked me. Dylan, you keep saying it's PV's fault. It's not PV's fault. He decided to bring up private information and show it on screen. It's against Twitch TOS for a reason. Public info doesn't mean show on stream. Yeah, I said that, but I don't know, like, whether it's part of Twitch TOS. Look, Twitch TOS says that even if somebody's private information is public, i.e. like an address or something like that, you still don't share it, right? He shared my 9-letter zip code. A 9-letter zip code would be considered private information. People can make of that what you will. I still don't want anybody to make any actions about it. I'm the only person who could file, since, like, or I guess the other people like Hutch are the only people that could file. I'm not going to file because I have no interest in taking Hasan off the airwaves. I don't think it would fix anything. I don't think it would do anything well. I don't think it'll unproduce my address to a wide audience. Hutch just filed a takedown request. It'd be good if he just deleted the VOD. Really, that's the only ask I would have, is just delete the VOD. Because it's the largest single place that has gotten viewership that contains that. You know, like Bad Empanada's video. I didn't even know he made a video until Hasan reacted to it. I had no clue. So that's just to show how much of a wave that made, right? When it comes to, I've been scared to my boots, you know? It was nothing. So really the 660,000. Twitch has not responded to the Hutch. You know. Also, and I'm just shooting from the hip here a little bit. It is a little known. Dan Clancy, Hasan sitting in a tree. Finish the nursery rhyme. I think it's fair. Delete the VOD and DM apology. I don't even want a DM apology. Just delete the VOD. He never has to talk to me. He doesn't like me. So it's whatever. He doesn't need to like me. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't need to be friends with every person. But he doesn't need to have that up there. I mean, besides anything about Twitch TOS, I'm just talking about basic etiquette. Okay. Now, let's move on to the rest of the news. We happy? We satisfied? I've answered all questions as I can. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Did you guys see? So the DNC Twitter account recently posted a video of Zoran Mondami talking about how the Democratic Party is a big tent. We welcome everybody. We want you to be part of this movement, XYZ. Right? And it was basically a message of like, we don't care how you got here. We're not part of a politics of purity, impurity politics, where we just want you to, we're just happy that you're here. We're just happy that you're here and you're ready for a better tomorrow. And I thought it was a good message. I think it was a good thing to throw out there. You know, nobody at least likes the line of, at least the name of purity politics. People like the idea of, you know, having wide open arms for people into the movement. But that doesn't mean that the DNC has accepted him. The DNC has still not endorsed him as the candidate. When I mean the DNC, what I mean, whether he's won the Democratic nomination, he doesn't have the support of Chuck Schumer. He doesn't have the support of Hakeem Jeffries, and he doesn't have the support of a lot of the Democratic Party, despite the fact that he holds well over a 2-digit lead over the next opponent who's even close to him, which is in the teens. From the last time I checked, I think Cuomo might be in the low 20s. Last poll I saw from Mondami had him at 44%. So he seems to be headed towards victory in the general election here in New York. Whether or not he's going to win, we'll have to wait and see. But the opposition to him is divided. Silva doesn't want to work with Cuomo or Adams. Adams doesn't want to drop out because he's the mayor and he's stubborn, even though he's so scandal-ridden, there's no chance he'll win. Cuomo, despite already losing to Mondami and having his own host of scandals, despite his high name recognition, which is even higher than Mondami's, seems like a flawed candidate. And Silva's a Republican. So, you know, this is New York, so that's the end of that. But all three of them have divided the opposition, which shows Mondami currently has a straight path to victory. Unless Eric Adams and Silva drop out, and they all unite the Republicans and the Democrats around one unity candidate, or vice versa, even though I think Adams has no chance. And I think at the end of the day, you know, if Cuomo lost once, he can lose again. All pathways lead towards Mondami victory, besides some narrow avenues that, due to their lack of unity, does not seem available. So the leader of the Democratic Party in the House, minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, was asked about whether or not, you know, hey, the DNC posted in support of him. You met with him twice. You still declined to endorse him. Are you out of step with your party? Listen to what he said in response.
Thank you, Leader. The DNC posted in support of Zohran Mamdani's campaign yesterday with a statement of Mamdani saying, we welcome anyone to join this movement. You've met with him twice, and stay tuned, you know, declined to endorse him. Are you out of step with your party on this issue?
I don't know. I guess people are going to have to figure that out. If that's the question you think that my constituents are asking me, because they're not.
Not happy about it. Doesn't want to endorse, waiting it out. Well, whether he endorses now or whether he endorses tomorrow, the pathway seems clear for Mondami to win. So I think the end game here, or where this is going to end, is with Mondami winning, Hakeem Jeffries congratulating him after hoping that maybe somebody else could bunce him out, you know, at the last second, because he doesn't like the socialist label that Mondami has, you know, accepted and embraced. And then he'll just have to deal with it afterwards. Once it's, you know, he's the mayor of New York, the wealthiest city in the United States, and one of the biggest Democratic hubs in the country. It's going to have to work with him. What else we got here? Oh, yes. So Elon Musk, this is very interesting. I have to show this. The 21st century is largely devoid of true philosophers. And then Elon Musk's account tweets, Rudyard Lynch has potential. Now, some of you might not know who he is, but he is also known as What If Alt History. And he is a very fascinating philosophic mind. To say of all the minds that are the philosophers of this generation, to say it is him, I'm sorry, but I just can't avoid it. I can't stop myself. I cannot resist. And I apologize for my lack of prudence here, but I have to bring up, not only could I point to any number of What If all his videos individually and say, you know what, I disagree with this. That's not important. What's important is the visions that he's had and the knowledge he shares with us that you cannot get anywhere else. The type of inquiries that this man has made, that Elon Musk finds, I think, makes him a philosopher king of this age. The richest man in the world. Who does he listen to? This man.
So I captured the left circle in my triangle, which is symbolic for the right and the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere has to serve the right hemisphere. I also lit up the tree, which I'm going to explain at the end. When I did all of this, Odin said, "Do you have any idea what you just did, mortal? You killed a god. You have no idea what that even means. You just changed the course of history single-handedly, Rudyard. What you did is just the spiritual equivalent of Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire. You just destroyed the thing that blocked your civilization from psychic energy. Rudyard, who the fuck are you? You are the first mortal I know of who did this. That really, really means something. I can't overstate that. You know, Rudyard, I keep running the simulation until cool stuff happens, which is my motivational system. But what you did is so ridiculous, I need to stop the game to show the public. What this young man did is so innately incredible, I am literally stopping the game to force you to watch it. I had frankly given up on your society. You were too lazy and stupid. Every empire falls. It's not personal. However, what this young man did was so deranged, I am going to intervene in the most direct way possible. This young man has saved you, and you don't even realize it yet. You are the god killer, Rudyard. This young man cut out the wall that was blocking you from the spirit world. You can all access the spirit world now in a way, in a manner comparable to your ancestors.
Anyway, this is an Elon Musk philosopher. This is the man that Elon Musk listens to when he needs philosophy advice. Fantastic. Good to know. That was from either either a bad trip or an episode of psychosis that he entered before deleting it off the internet a while ago. Interesting fella, though. Alternative history sure is interesting. When Odin calls you to be a god killer. Okay, 2 more stories we got to throw at you boys. The first one is the Trump admin ditches Biden era plane to make airlines pay compensation for flight disruption. So, one of the big consumer rights victories of the Biden administration was with airlines. Airlines have gotten tighter and tighter. The seats have gotten smaller and smaller. And the tickets, in some instances, while they are more consumer friendly, there are instances where either flight disruptions or cancellations or other problems leads to, or for example, third-party sellers lead to consumers getting screwed. Either getting, they have a third-party seller that sells them a ticket, and then they get to the airline, and then they can't get on in time, and they have problems getting the ticket, and then boom, the airline, you get screwed by a third-party seller. Or, as was the case as what Biden was trying to address in this, there is some sort of disturbance, either with the plane having a malfunction and not being able to service, or due to weather issues and some sort of extreme climate that stops you from being able to make a flight. And the way that it did work, the way that it was on the law books before, was that the airline hadn't have to do anything. They don't have to help you. They don't need to, you get a future flight, they'll reschedule your flight, but that's basically it. There's no compensation. You will not get compensated for the time you lost. Mind you, if you're somebody who's trying to fly to Europe to work, you miss a day of work, you miss a day of pay, too bad. They can't control the weather. The Biden administration changed that. So they did have to compensate you for those types of airline disruptions. But the Trump administration has decided that that's too bad, that's too mean to the airline companies, and he is reversing that decision. The Trump administration said Thursday it is abandoning a Biden-era plan that sought to require airlines to compensate stranded passengers with cash, lodging, and meals for flight cancellations or changes caused by a carrier. The proposed rule would have aligned U.S. policy more closely with European airline consumer protections. It was proposed last December in the final weeks of the then-President Joe Biden administration, leaving its fate in the hands of the Republican successor. In a document posted Thursday, President Donald Trump's Transportation Department said its plan described the proposal rule is consistent with the department and administration's priorities. Trump has sought to significantly roll back or modify federal regulations that his administration deems are wasteful or burdensome. I don't see why compensating people that due to the fault of the flight, due to the fault of the carrier, they were unable to get them to the destination in time, and they might have missed work, they might have missed time with family, they might miss funerals, they might miss birthdays, they might miss weddings, and they deserve to be compensated for that. And obviously, it's not like an airline can give you back a wedding, can give you back a child's birth, can give you back a birthday, can give you back an anniversary, can give you back celebration with family, give you back your time at work, or give you back your travel plans, but they can give you money. They can do that, and they can give you credit. I remember I once got stranded in France due to the fact that they overbooked a flight, which is a thing that they do. They book more people on the flight than they have seats, under the assumption that some people are going to cancel. Problem is, sometimes people don't, and I was the unlucky guy that got pulled out of the hat. So they gave me credit, and I'm able to use that at a later flight. I still haven't used it years later. I'm saving it, trying to be prudent, in order to go, back on the transatlantic flight. American Airlines, if anybody's curious. So that type of compensation seems rational. It seems like decent consumer protections, and I think it is making it so that airlines have to be held to account to their own mistakes, and it will make them more prudent when it comes to people's time and schedules. And it will also leave less burden on the airline workers who have to deal with tons and tons of angry people who are tired, who are stressed out, who are having panic attacks, and who are flipping out in these airline. I mean, dude, people act like animals in airports. Even for the people who silently simmer. And I remember when I came back from Ukraine, I was getting that feeling once. During that French trip, I really felt that simmering in my body. Probably didn't help. I was coming straight from the Donetsk front line, going straight from the Donetsk front line to a stressful airplane environment where they're saying, sorry, you're just going to have to stay in southern France until we can get another flight for you. But it happens. Either way, people should be compensated for it. It's only fair. It's only fair. Industry trade group Airlines for America, which represents carriers including United, Delta, Southwest Airlines, welcomed the move by the Trump administration. We are encouraged by the Department of Transportation's reviewing of unnecessary and burdensome regulations that exceed its authority and don't solve issues important to our customers. Why would customers not think it's important that they get compensated when the airplane fucks up, when the airline messes up? Why would they not? Oh, we don't want $200, the consumer says. Oh, we don't want hundreds of dollars in refunds, says no one ever. I mean, look, I understand airlines have incredibly thin margins. In order for these airlines to work, they got to work on thin margins. But that's also why you need to be effective. You have to be efficient. You're going to have to be efficient if you're going to treat consumers with respect, if you're going to be able to make sure that they get compensated for your mistakes. And at the end of the day, there's a good chance that by compensating them, you're going to create better business with them. Definitely if you give them credits that they can come back to the airline with. The problem is that a lot of them just want it to be credits. They don't want the option for cash to be on the table. If I could get more credits, I'll go with credits. Outside of that, of course I want cash. I can use it anywhere. They don't want it to be cash. They want it to be credits every time so they can protect their bottom dollar. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be compensating these people and they're not flying around all the time, they don't have anywhere else to go, it might be better to just give them the cash, give them the monetary value. Better for the consumer. They can use it anywhere to pay their bills, pay their rent, pay their gas, pay their car payment, whatever it is. They can take it and go put it on fucking sports betting. It doesn't matter. It's their money. Now tickets can be $2 cheaper, but with less risk protection. Hey, you know, $2. $2, buddy. I'll take the $2. Woo. The proposal rules saw compensation starting at $200 when a flight is canceled or significantly delayed because of a mechanical problem with the plane or an airline or computer outage. Compensation as high as $775 was proposed for delays of 9 hours or more. That's not that bad. I mean, you could say the compensation for 9 hours being $775. I mean, per person, yeah, that kind of stacks up. Maybe you'd make it 500, 600. You could debate where the line is, but to have no mechanism entirely, it's like the Wild West out there. And that's the last place I want in the skies. If you were in Marseille, that's a pretty dope spot to get screwed over and have to rebook. I can't remember where it was. But I remember, like, I like some layovers. But I try to be strategic with my layovers, and I try to, because a 3-hour layover, there's not really much you can do. But if you get like a good 6 or 7 or 8 hour layover, you can go and you can find one thing to do in any city in the world, and that's actually pretty cool. And you essentially get it for free. In fact, the layover is seen as a burden. And so I remember I had a layover in the United Kingdom. I went to the Churchill pub, got a drink for a few hours, came back. The rest of the flight was golden. I forget, different carriers have different like limits for like how long a layover is before it's a stop and then they charge you more. I remember shouting at me doing voice recordings on Discord. Dylan was ripping into me. It was all Danabo's fault, of course. Danabo didn't make the plane run on time. So obviously Danabo must pay the toll. Okay. I wanted to do one more story before I released you all to the weekend. As we're finalizing the draft on our documentary, and I am working on releasing a new article with Offbeat, and I want to get back over to that article work. Plus, I'm playing Red Dead again. I won't lie. I've been playing Red Dead again, and I've been enjoying it. I have solidly been enjoying it. Anyway, I wanted to talk about one last thing before we ended today's stream, and that has to do with the Trump Europe phone call. So, Donald Trump, before his expected call with Vladimir Putin, which is to happen in the near future, after his recent calls with Lukashenko, where he called him a strong man and a man of respect and all this other stuff, after then saying, oh, and he gave us hostages back. By the way, if they were hostages, that means they had to be taken as hostages, and it was that strong man who did it, so, you know, kind of the context is important. Either way, Trump is expected to have another call with Vladimir Putin. How it's going to go, whether Trump's going to come away from it, you know, talking about the Ruski Mir, or Trump's going to come away from it frustrated because no progress was made, we will have to wait and see. But after 5 phone calls and 1 in-person meeting, we are no closer to Zelensky meeting with Putin. In fact, Zelensky has recently been told by Putin, and Putin's made a big public show of it, that if he wants to negotiate an end to the war, he has to come to Moscow. And don't worry, his security will be guaranteed by the very country that has tried to assassinate him about a dozen times in the last 3 years. So, obviously, that's a non-starter. The Ukrainians are not going to do that. They're not going to deliver their head of state that the Russian government continues to assert is illegitimate directly to the Russians in their nation's capital. That is not going to happen. How these negotiations typically go is they find a third party like Oman, a third location like Istanbul, and then they go negotiate there after being hosted by other parties. That suggestion is a non-starter. That is the purpose of the suggestion. It's not because they actually want it, even though, of course, they'd love to arrest Zelensky for crimes against Russia in Moscow. The reason they did it was to sink the idea entirely, to see if maybe they can get Trump to go to Zelensky and say, hey, meet with him in Moscow. He met with me in Alaska. That's basically the same thing somehow. And then after asserting that, maybe, Zelensky, of course, will have to respond with a no, and then it's Zelensky's fault because he won't come to Moscow in order to have these talks, and he'd rather have it in a location that they've had before, like Istanbul or otherwise, because he'd like a real third party. He's the one throwing a wrench into the negotiations, even though Trump has asserted again and again and again, here's 3 2-week deadlines, here's a 100-day deadline, here's a 24-hour deadline, here's some more sanctions deadline, here's a 50-day deadline, here's a 14-day deadline. Here's another deadline that the Europeans brought me to bring, and we're no closer. In fact, the only consequence that the Trump government has put forward so far, which was the sanctions on the tariffs on India, has now been ruled unconstitutional by American courts, meaning that if months pass and the appellate court decision is not in Trump's favor, Trump might not only not have the tariff in place, which is only 20% higher than China. That's the big consequence, 20% higher tariff. But he might have to actually pay it back. He might have to pay back to over $200 billion in tariff revenue to said countries. I mean, not said countries, to said companies, which of course operate in said countries. Either way, absolutely will operate in our country trying to bring them in. But also, of course, it affects their bottom dollar too. Either way, this phone call between the EU and Trump was an opportunity for them to once again try to get Trump on message to say, look, Putin said he was going to meet with Zelensky. You said he was going to meet with Zelensky. You said that they've already organized a meeting. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, said multiple times they're going to organize a meeting. And here we are once again, no meeting between Zelensky and Putin, no meeting between Russian and Ukrainian officials that have any serious look at ending the war. And the Russians are still treating this with a lack of seriousness that they've had for the entire time. And Trump responded to this meeting by putting pressure on the Europeans and blaming them for importing too much Russian energy product. Let me read you from Axios. President Trump told European leaders in a virtual meeting on Ukraine on Thursday that they are funding the war through purchases of Russian oil and must cut Russia off and pressure China to do the same, a White House official said. Trump has sporadically threatened to punish Russian President Vladimir Putin for continuing to bombard Ukrainian cities and refusing to make peace. But in the call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and a group of European leaders, he turned the tables on the European Union. EU countries have dramatically decreased their purchases of Russian oil and gas since the war began, but the White House official claimed Russia received $1.1 billion in fuel sales from the EU in 1 year. The president also emphasized the European leaders must place economic pressure on China for funding Russia's war effort, the official said. In a press conference after the call, Zelensky said he stressed that there needs to be more pressure on Russia. French President Emmanuel Macron, who was on the call, said afterwards that if Putin continues to reject peace talks with Zelensky, more sanctions will be imposed in coordination with the U.S. The White House emphasized that it's up to Europe to pressure Putin. Not them, Europe. The president was cordial, but he was very direct in his demand that Europe puts more pressure on Russia, a second official told Axios. The primary EU customers for Russian oil are Hungary and Slovakia, which have exemptions from EU import bans and incidentally have Trump-friendly leaders. This is true, but let me throw you a few things out there. It's not just that the countries that are still largely importing Russian gas are Hungary and Slovakia, which are led by Viktor Orban and Fico, respectively. And these are very Trump-friendly leaders. It's that when the Ukrainians try to pressure the very systems by which this oil is purchased, and that Trump is saying, hey, we must stop it, put much pressure. When the Ukrainians bomb the pumping stations that send those energy products to Europe to be purchased, Donald Trump comes out in public and condemns it because it affects his good friends. But if it's the French that have to pay higher energy prices, if it's the Germans that have to pay higher energy prices, if it's the British that have to pay higher energy prices, if it's the Poles that have to pay higher energy prices, well, that's not a problem. The Hungarians have to pay higher energy prices. The Hungarians got to stop buying Russian energy product and giving them money, which they then use in the war machine. The Slovaks should do the same. The Ukrainians are taking it into their own hands at the same time that Donald Trump told President Zelensky that he had to pressure the Russians. He had to go on the offensive, that you don't win a war by only going on the defensive. His exact words that he told Zelensky. And he pressured him and asked him to continue to go with this long-range strike campaign, continue to go and pressure the Russian energy behemoth, continue to make the war more expensive, so it'd be more likely he comes to the table and negotiate, and therefore more likely that Trump gets his ever so lauded Nobel Peace Prize, and he'll get all the Norwegians to clap for him. So, is it stop bringing and stop buying this Russian energy export? Or is it, hey, stop trying to destroy Russian energy exports, stop trying to prevent Russian energy exports with force? Should it just be that they go and convince Hungary and Slovakia, which will not work, to just give it up? We've already tried and we've failed. In fact, the Hungarians have threatened the Ukrainians when it comes to electricity, saying that if they continue to target pumping stations like this, which are doing the very thing that Trump is saying is bad, then they're going to cut off electricity imports into Ukraine. And so the country that's being invaded and bombed and where the Russians have regularly targeted their energy infrastructure, they're going to even have less energy supply coming from the Hungarian route. That's their counter threat. The Ukrainians haven't, been subdued by the counter threat. They still went through with the strike despite the fact that they knew that they had the ability to do that. But it shows that not only is Viktor Orban protesting and is Trump responding and talking about that and affirming that and giving them a pat on the head, but it also shows that when the Hungarians threaten Ukraine for doing exactly what Trump asked of them, Trump says nothing to defend them. There's nothing in his DNA that can get him out there, even verbally. We don't need him in the trenches. We don't need him in some T-64. We don't need him in a T-72. We don't need him in no BMP 1, 2, or 3. We just need him to go out there and say, look, stop buying the Russian energy product, Hungary. Stop buying the Russian energy product, Slovakia. Maybe we'll pressure you. if you don't do that? Why has he never threatened tariffs on Hungary? Why has he never threatened tariffs on Slovakia? Why were they exempt of the big waves of tariff that were being placed all throughout Europe, just like the Russians were? Why can't we, if the goal is to end the war as soon as possible by targeting the Russian energy behemoth as the drone campaign and the Ukrainian development of the Flamingo missile is intended to do, then why wouldn't you pressure them? Why wouldn't you go point the finger at the people who are the ones purchasing the product instead of pointing the finger at the European leaders that would like Viktor Orban to step in line, that would like Fico to step in line, would like the Hungarians and the Slovaks to stop buying that export, along with the few countries that are still buying marginal amounts of Russian export. The vast majority of Europe has stopped outside of, again, Hungary and Slovakia, which do it openly with no consequences because the EU have given them exemptions that Trump has both defended but then attacked the import of oil. Trump's position is inconsistent. It doesn't make any sense. And so how the EU leaders respond to this, I guess it's going to be trying to find the imports on the margins and crushing them, as well as finding new ways to implement sanctions, hoping that Trump won't go with this new wave of sanctions, but maybe that'll, we'll be able to get Trump on the next wave of sanctions, maybe not the 18th or 19th, but the 20th package of sanctions. Is that the plan? Is this a tactic by Trump to delay more, knowing that the Ukrainians are now going to have to scramble to put in new sanction policies, not to target the actual countries that are buying the majority of this product, the countries that Trump has protected the exemptions of and have stopped them from having material force stopping those exports, have gone out there and protested it, said it was bad. What is he going to do now? I think this could be a delaying tactic, hoping that they'll spend time trying to find the few imports that are being made by countries outside of Hungary and Slovakia, strain that, squeeze that a little bit more. Prices might go up in those countries a little bit in respect to that. And Hungary and Slovakia will probably continue to have their exemption. I don't think this is Trump calling for those exemptions to be cracked down upon. It's still his political ally, and he wants to protect Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban came to CPAC to campaign for Trump. And Trump had his Department of Homeland Security head, Kristi Noem, go to Poland, man, am I tired, Poland, to campaign for Nawrocki, who was running for the Polish presidency. He cares about his political allies being emboldened and being strong. And even though there are alternative routes for the Hungarians and for the Slovaks to import energy, there are alternative pathways that have been made available by the European Union through Romania where they could get their energy imports elsewhere. They have decided not to, and Trump has done nothing to pressure them in that direction because they're his buddies. And those personal relationships trump all else. Said so even in The Art of the Deal. I may have my differences with you, but I think what Hasan did is disgusting. I fully support you. He took it too far. Well, you can always take it back. Thank you, Based Liberty. I assume that you're way to my left. And it's okay. Okay? We don't have a lot of Marxist Leninists in chat, but you can hang around. We won't kick you out. Nah, I'm a Trumpy fan. Yeah, I figured with the name Based Liberty. Okay.
A curd is a curd.
Whoa.
We love Dylan.
Hey, $20 from IJII Productions. My goodness. IJII Productions. How can I forget IJII Productions? Never heard of IJII Productions, but thank you for the $20. I hope your productions are going well. I hope they're going spectacular, in fact. My goodness. That puts us, I think, at $50 for today's donations. If anybody else wants to donate more, you can at DylanBurns.tv. All of our donations we are gathering so that I can use it for embeds as I go back to Ukraine later this month. Later this month, I'm headed back to Ukraine. I'm going straight back to the Konstantinivka front, and I'm going to be filming all sorts of stuff on the front line. And I want to get some gasoline costs and all that stuff dealt with, so it'd be very helpful. When I heard Poland, I laughed my ass off because I'm first generation Polish American. Okay, ha ha ha. Okay. It was just a simple slip up, okay? We love our Polish here. We love the Polish here. We love all the Poles. Okay? We love them. Okay? My missing carburetor doesn't, but you know, I love the Poles. I'm kidding. I love the Poles. I love the Poles. So you are fleeing the country from docs? I'm in hiding, actually. I'm currently on actually like a witness protection program that I've been placed in by the Trump administration to hide me from Hasan's fans. Okay. I think we've covered everything. If you want to follow any updates from me personally, DylanBurns1776 on Twitter is probably the best. I'm going to be posting some pictures over the weekend on my Instagram, DylanBurnsTV on Instagram. So be sure to follow me there. Pictures of my time on the ground in Ukraine. And if you want to join the community, you can scroll beneath today's stream and click the Discord and join the Discord. We have a pretty good Russia-Ukraine updates channel. If you want to support financially, again, DylanBurns.tv is the place where you can donate and support our on-the-ground independent war journalism. We do not get funded in any other way but through donations. So that's the only way we can fund this stuff, and I appreciate everybody who decides to spare a dollar or spare a dime on anything they've made on company time. Besides that, you can also support Dylan Burns TV on Patreon. We're going to be making a new post there in the future, updating about the Pokrovsk documentary process as we're getting closer to release, as well as Dylan Burns TV on Twitch if you drop your primer at absolutely no cost after connecting your Amazon Prime to your Twitch account. Besides that, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend full of much fun. Good night and good luck, everyone. Have a good one.